you ever felt.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not like watching CNN being like, this person just getting freaking grilled, like question.
People are over that shit anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck that.
Do you want to have a drink while we do this?
Oh, I'm not drinking.
You're not?
No, I'm sober. But you are more than welcome to drink. Absolutely.
I would love a drink.
Yeah. Crack it open. Do your thing. I got whiskey here. I didn't know did you bring something?
No, I've just been looking at that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Let me wash the glass.
Sweet.
Yeah. That's actually pretty good.
So is this like a timed sobriety or are you just done? Thanks, by the way.
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of talked about it I'm going to pull this down for you. So it's kind of like out of your face. Like you want that back to you though? You're going to be like sitting like in
that. No, I can lean in. That's all good. Cool.
Yeah. Just try and keep it like a fist or so-ish from your face. So if you got to pull it back, that's fine. If you're just chilling. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it kind of like, oddly enough, I talked about it on a podcast the other day, but it was sort of random. Simone and I went up to Denver and had a freaking awesome, amazing night and went to a comedy show and, like drank our fucking asses off, like tore down the town. It was really good. It was a great time. We needed it so bad. And then woke up the next morning and I wasn't hungover or anything like that. I just kind of had like the insight to just want to stop drinking. So I just told her, I was like, I'm good. Like, I kind of want to just stop and we'll see what happens. And, I just kind of made the decision right there. It's like, I'm good with this. Let's go out on a bang. That was a great night. I'm not hungover for once. And then came back here and, it's Otto. So I was just talking about this the other day in a solo episode. So it's like, I kind of I said all of it like, on a podcast, but then I also mixed and edited and cut it. So it's like, I've heard me say this like 15 hours. Yeah. So I kind of made that decision, came back home. Oddly enough, went through like full on like alcohol withdrawals, cause I was
really?
I drank on like a regular basis. I wasn't like an alcoholic, but I would drink a White Claw or however many White Claws like a day, like every day. Like that was just kind of my regiment. And, I don't know, went through that. And that was really shitty. I wouldn't equate it to like, from what I've read, like a heroin withdrawal or something insane like that. But it was like full on like shakes and shivers and felt like I had the flu. And
wow, that's intense.
This is fucking brutal. Yeah. Yeah. It was 2 days of crap. And then on top of that, I was like, okay, I've got to figure out something to where I can distract my brain from not wanting to drink alcohol. Like I got to be able to get through this. And so I had been reading like a ton about the caveman diet. And so just out of nowhere, it was like, I read a really good article that was very, very like down the middle, like didn't have any like advocates, like huge public figures that were, didn't reference anything that they've said like Jordan Peterson or fucking Rogan or anything.
And so the caveman, is that the all meat diet or is that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is
with
all
a little
meat.
Fruit or is it just all meat?
So I personally don't do any fruit. Like right now, like I do a little bit of cheese, like depending on the situation, and an avocado. Once a week, I'll probably have asparagus, usually wrapped in bruschetta, like cooked on the Traeger. I really love it and it kind of hits the spot for me, but it's almost all meat. And so I did that on top of like alcohol withdrawals to distract myself from not wanting to drink. And then it was like 3 or 4 days later, I was feeling amazing. And then it was like, I immediately started doing like crazy workouts. And I don't know, just wanted to just go for it. Like, and yeah. So the big thing, and I put this up the other day, but so that was July 20th, right? Weighed 233 pounds. And then so oddly enough, the other day it was, 60 days later, I've lost 26 pounds. I'm a little bit less than that right now, but I've still got a long ways to go. I want to be in a much better condition, but not drinking and sticking to a diet that I actually really enjoy, which is weird.
Dude, lots of meat, that's an awesome diet.
Like people are like, they're like, oh, that just sounds horrible. I'm like, I don't know.
No way.
I ate a whole
steak.
I ate like 2 pounds of bacon this morning. I'm good.
Yeah.
So, honestly, it's been really fucking good for me. It's like, in a weird way, like I've literally had 3 podcasts talking about this, so it feels strange, like it's regurgitated information to me, but like I feel like an older version of myself, like pre like 18 when I started drinking, like my mind is racing, my mind is running, like I'm like super like, I mean, synapses are firing, and I feel like a version of me that I like lost or had forgotten or kind of like numbed through alcohol or like not having a good healthy diet, you know. So like I've been through the roller coasters of like I've been really really fit before while still drinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've been
doable.
bordering alcoholic, right? Like back in the day where it was just like, and I've kind of like gained weight and I've lost weight and I've done this thing. But like this time around, like my mental health, my physical health, and like just my desire to kind of move forward is like so much more enlightened than it was in the past. And I like legitimately feel fucking great.
Yeah.
Like, I feel
congratulations.
so good.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I like what you did because like in my experience, it's really hard to replace a bad habit with an empty space.
Yeah.
You have to replace something with something. So, and that's like really common is people who either have addictions to alcohol or drugs or whatever. When they go through the like sobriety process, they get really into something, whatever it is. A lot of people that I know do health and fitness shit because that's the world that I'm in. But that's a super common thing is like, all right, I was doing this, like, you can't replace it with nothing. And I was all gung ho in this. So now I'm working out and I'm all gung ho in that. It's like people can take that same drive, almost that same like addictive drive and put it somewhere positive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I thought about that like 2 or 3 days ago. It's like, I mean, I would say reality is I have a huge addictive tendency to whatever I'm doing. Like anybody in the days of the band, they will fucking tell you, like I was the most driven, maybe not the most talented person in the band, the most driven, and I would just make shit happen. It's just kind of in my nature, but I would say that I have a highly addictive personality. Thankfully, it's never like got me in anything where it was like hard drugs or something crazy like that. But like for me, I'm like, okay, just call a spade a spade. If you're going to be addicted to something and it's going to be your well-being, then I think that that's better. Like I'm not out partying. I'm at my home gym working out. I'm in the sauna. I'm doing the cold plunge, and it's like my kids are there. I'm still there to cook dinner. I'm still there to put them to bed. You know, so it's like, all right, you got to like, what do you choose? I could still be at home sitting on the couch watching TV while the kids are sleeping, drinking beer. I would rather go out and work out or get in the sauna. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to choose that addiction. It's like, it's still an addiction. I mean, just call it what it is, but it's like, at least it's a positive addiction.
Yeah. One, when you're done, you're like, fuck yeah, I did it. The other one, when you're done, you're like, God damn it, I did it again.
I feel like shit for 2 fucking days. Yeah. Well, that was one of the things I said like last week on that podcast was like, there was just too many, like it's odd. So I would never drink enough like by standard measurements to like justify blacking out. But I would like wake up, like I'd have like 4 White Claws and I'd be like, what happened? Like I wouldn't black out, but I'd be like, it would be like foggy. And it's like the older I got, like the more I drank, or, you know, what if it was, you know, 10 years of alcohol abuse or something to my body. It's like I stopped being like, I remember drinking when we were like 20 years old or 21, and it'd be like, no thing, right? Cool, bada bing. But it's like anymore, like if I drink, it would like hang out, like hangovers were terrible, but also like I would like, my body would like shut down, like almost like I was blacking out on like almost no alcohol.
Like you would stop making memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just be like, wake up the next morning and be like, what the fuck happened? Like I had 3 White Claws and I feel like I blacked out. I forgot like half of the night.
Yeah, that kind of happens to me. I think like, I don't know if it's a consequence of getting older, but yeah, I think people stop making memories on alcohol a lot faster than they think, or maybe not everybody, but that's definitely the case with me. And like, I don't even have to be that drunk. I can be like 3, maybe 4 drinks deep, and that's like a lot for me. And then, I won't be acting like crazy. I won't, you know, I'm not hammered, but I just stop making memories. I have like big gaps.
That's, I mean, I don't know what causes that, you know, like, but that's what, same thing. That's what would happen to me. And I would, but getting back to what I was saying, it's like, all of a sudden you'd wake up and like, you have this big memory gap. And then I would go like fucking up to the gills with anxiety and be like, oh God, did I fuck something up? Did I do something stupid? Or just feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be like, dude, like your kids are like legit in their bedrooms sleeping. You're watching some kind of horror movie or something, and you're like, you have a blackout moment on the couch. Like, what kind of dad are you being? You know, so it's like, I just kind of felt like, realized like most of the times it was like me just feeling like a piece of shit. Not really anxiety, because I was out in the world. I wasn't partying, but I'd be like, what are you doing, man? Like, what, you know, like, and it never affected my job. Like, I'd get up in the morning. It's like rock and roll. Like really good at my job, but it was just like, I don't know, it was time for me.
Yeah. And it does become like a thing of like, even if it doesn't affect your job day in and day out, every day you choose to do that, you're like, you wake up and you're like, man, that wasn't my best.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't my best effort. I wasn't the most present. You know, I don't have kids, but I wasn't the most present with my kids. I wasn't the most present with my wife. That wasn't the best choice. I chose like something that I knew was kind of aiming down, and you choose it a little bit every day. I think over a long time that can like, I mean, some people drink every day and they're fine, but I can't fucking do it. I start to feel like a piece of shit after a while.
I did. I mean, I honestly, I could do it. I did do it. That's the thing. That's the crazy thing. You think about it. And the more I tell this story, even to myself, it's like I would constantly, I wasn't an alcoholic. Like, all right, well, what quantifies being an alcoholic? Like I drank every day.
Yeah.
Maybe not enough to get drunk. Not enough to like affect my relationships with people or anything, but I'm like, I don't know, man. It seems like it was a habitual habit, you know? So it's weird. I think we equate like being an alcoholic with like crashing and burning and having to be forced by the police or something to go to AA, right? Because you feel it's like that was an alcoholic. Well, I don't know. I think there's levels to it.
Yeah. And definitely, I think with stuff like that, people judge themselves. Like, what is an alcoholic is somebody who has a worse problem than me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay. I drink every day, but it's no big deal. Not an alcoholic. This guy who does it more than me, he's an alcoholic.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like just above where you're at, man.
Exactly.
Oh, God. Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely would not say that I won't drink again. But I have kind of come to the realization that like for me, at least at this point in this like journey, like to get myself back corrected, it has to have like a profound fucking impact on the experience. Like it's got to be, if I'm going to drink, like it has to be something that's like more meaningful than just that experience, right? And it would like, I mean, I can't even say what that would be.
Yeah.
But like I've personally never been to like wine country in Italy or whatever. Like, yes, if I'm in that experience, I would love to have a fucking glass of wine with my wife. Absolutely, right? But that, to me, I think expands on that experience. But me sitting at the house on the back patio watching the sunset, I want to experience that sober because it's been so fucking long since I had done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a lot of that stuff was like foggy and like just whatever these experiences with my kids, like I want to kind of like relearning that stuff, you know? Like I wouldn't get drunk and go hang out and play at the park with my kids, but it's like I want to relearn who I am sober.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like before I started drinking, because like I started drinking at 18. Like let's just call it what it is. Like we live in the country, we live rural. Like I started and never stopped. 20 years of drinking. Maybe not every single day, but I would say the majority of my 30s was every day.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I kind of want to revisit the Kyle that doesn't need that to experience life and enjoy it and smile. And that's the weird thing is like I've said that a few times. I was like, I'm smiling again, not only like, outside, like physically enjoying life, but like internally I feel good. And I'm like smiling about it. It's like, man, this experience, whatever it is, could be so small or, mundane. It's like, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck yeah,
Yeah, man. And I think there's something about like waking up and being pumped for the day that alcohol definitely robs from you. Like, even if you don't get that hungover, or even if like you wake up and you kind of shake it off and go on with your day, like I've never had more. Sometimes I can do it with like 1 or 2 drinks, but anything more than that, I wake up and I'm like, oh, fuck. And like, even if I'm not crazy hungover, you just don't feel good. And like you slept like shit. You don't wake up like, all right, let's fucking do this thing.
Yeah,
and then you got to drag your ass through the first part of the day. And it's that kind of thing of like win the morning, win the day. And you lose every morning if you've had more than 2 drinks. That at least I do.
Yeah. I feel like that's like spot on. I mean, you hit it. It takes so much time away. You know what I mean? And time is a very valuable and precious thing. you know? So it's like, you don't realize it when you're in the moment, when you're like in the heat of the battle and you're drinking and you're hungover, you're just kind of just like part of it. Right. And like, I remember mornings where I would get up, like when I was training for the marathon, I'd get fucking smashed and get up and be like, oh, your life's going to be hell. You got to go run 6 miles now. Like, that's just how my brain works. Like, let's put yourself through the hell more. But I'm like, I think about that now and I'm like, wouldn't it have just been better at that point in your life, you dumbass, to just not drink and then still do the 6 miles? Like, you would have felt better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like, you just kind of get in this rut of like, this is just part of it. But that's such a wasted time because like, yeah, you might have taken a step forward, but like your backwards progression because you just got like hammered the night before was like, dude. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm at with it, but I mean, I know like right now the big focus is like working out. The big focus is getting healthy, eating right. The huge thing is like sauna, cold plunge, and
yeah,
I mean, I'm freezing right now because I just got out of the cold plunge right before I came here. And I actually thought I was like running late because I looked at the watch right before I got in the sauna and it was like, I thought it was 4:30, but it was 5:30.
Nice.
I was like, oh shit. I was like in the cold plunge and like, I'm like, I got time and I'm like getting ready. I'm like, oh, I gotta fucking go. But yeah, so that's just been something for me that, I don't know, it just makes me feel good internally. And it's just moving my body again. And it's like, it fucking hurts when you're 38. Like when you're that out of shape. I mean, I think about that, like 233 pounds. Like I should be walking at about 190 and I'm not there yet. I've still got some way to go, but, I mean, dude, that's a lot of weight to be carrying around. Like at my height, it's like bordering obesity and it was just not good. Like my joints were hurting. Like I ran that marathon last year or last March, not quite a year ago. It was like, and I was probably 235. And it's like I almost blew my knees out running it. Like I had to like wrap them with a shirt that I ripped up to like get through the last bit of the race.
Holy shit.
And it's like, yeah, you were running with like 4 milk jugs like strapped to your gut and your thighs and your arm, you know. And it's like, God, it destroyed my knees and like.
And then if you're not doing like strength training and stuff like that on top of it, and your like body isn't like set up for that kind of distance work, then you're also like, you know, people are built different, but like you can have instability in the knees and hips and your stride is weird and all that stuff because you're carrying all that extra weight and all that, like, you know, you take like 1,000 steps. You take thousands of jogging steps through the course of a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And if your steps are a little bit weird on each one, your knees a little internally rotated, your whatever, because you haven't set yourself up properly, you know, 10 steps like that isn't going to do anything, but that compounds over time. And running is like a more higher impact thing than people think it is. Yeah, it can really fuck you up. I'm not a runner. And then every once in a while I'll run. And if I run for more than 20 minutes, like my body's not set up for it. I do different shit all the time, but running, not so much. So if I go for a while, I can feel it through my shins, my feet, my ankles, all that shit. Just because, it takes a long time for your body to adapt. And if you're overweight and you're not eating right and you're drinking and all that stuff,
just everything.
Dude.
A fucking kitchen sink. Like, let's go run a marathon. Yeah, that was fucking. Yeah, it actually like it legit hurt me. Like my knees I was struggling. I've ran twice since, but I haven't done any running since I've started this like kind of new process, like no running at all. I loved running so much because it was like I could get in my headspace and then work through a bunch of problems. But the sauna takes care of that shit.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Like, this is mentally for me better than any, I could do, you know, however many miles, it doesn't matter. That sauna will take care of that shit.
Yeah.
Right quick, you know,
so what is it you like about the sauna and cold plunge? And you do those like back to back? Or?
So I always go sauna cold.
Yeah.
Always. Like even for me, like a big deal. And I've been trying to push this on people is like, my life is crazy. Like when you have 2 kids that are both in sports and you're an independent contractor as a real estate agent and your wife owns her own business, like having like a rigid fixed schedule is almost impossible. And I think it sets people up sometimes to fail, right? Or you feel like a piece of shit because you didn't meet that 7 a.m., 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Like you're not Jocko, right? You're like, I'm getting up at 4:45 to work out. And it's like, okay, man, cool. I'm glad you can do that. That's so awesome. And you're so much better at task-oriented things than I ever will be. But for me, it's like my my day can change because my business is like based around like a call. Somebody calls you and they want to see a house or a piece of land or like I've got to go. So I really never know what's going to happen. So it's like, first off, like I work out every day, no breaks. Fuck that.
All right.
Every day. And sometimes it's at a certain time and sometimes it's at 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
You know, like last night was a bitch. It was a really long day with practices and all kinds of stuff. Like I started hitting at 7:45 or 7:50 or some shit. And it was like, I didn't get done till 9:30. But so I always do the sauna and then the cold plunge. Usually I work out and then go straight into the sauna because it's already ready to rock and roll, and then go straight to the, so workout, sauna, cold plunge. Yeah. Which is rough to do that at 11 o'clock because like, even though you might be like so worn out from working out, going to the sauna, hitting the cold plunge, if you come back inside in 30 minutes, your mind is running like as fast as humanly possible after the cold plunge. Like your body is like recovering and you're burning calories. And you're just like, right now, like my brain is going 1,000 miles an hour. It's good at 7:30, but when it's midnight and you're like, just go, right? Then it affects your sleep. So it's got this, but that sucks because sleep is imperative and I sleep like shit anyways, always have. So, but I also don't want to miss a day. I don't want to miss a day working out. It's like, I got to get my body moving. I've got to, you know, if that's a hardcore stretch with a little bit of calisthenics or whatever, I have to work out. And so for me, what's been really crazy, and I don't know if this is like, it's probably in part some of the diet and obviously the working out, but it's just like, I'll do, so what was yesterday? Yesterday was legs, right? So it's like, I mean, but it's, so I do like entire upper body and abs, entire lower body and abs. And then I have like a calisthenics workout day. So
you do lower, upper calisthenics, basically, and then just kind of rotate through those three.
Kind of, yeah, in a sense. Some of it's like more of a mobile workout, like mobility. But like yesterday, for instance, was legs, and it's your mom actually told me this like years ago because I used to go to the gym and just run. And she's like, "What are you trying to do?" I was like, "Oh, lose weight." She's like, "You need to work out." And I was like, "Well, yeah, but that'll put muscle on." She's like, "It will burn a shit ton of calories. Like, trust me, I know what I'm talking about." So, anyways, that's always stuck with me. So it's like, when I first got into it, it's like my body wasn't ready to like lift heavy weight or anything. And I don't want to be bulky. Like I have no desire to be like some swole, like muscle guy.
Yeah.
Everything I do, it could be like 20 or 30 pounds. It's all like light mobility, similar to what I see you doing, like with kettlebells. And so, but the leg, I've been like moving in more weight. So it was a brutal workout. And kind of heavier weight, still doing the same movements, but it was just, it was insane. And like, I got to the point to where I couldn't hardly do the last like session. But I got through it. It fucking sucked. I had to like do some screaming, listen to some metal music, got through it.
Yeah.
So went into the sauna, sat for 40 minutes, went into the cold plunge.
40 minutes is a long sit.
So it is. It's an infrared sauna. So it only goes up to 140. But if you get in there right after workout, it's still cooking.
Yeah.
And 40 is rough. I don't recommend it. But I had to work through some stuff yesterday mentally, and something was just bothering me during my workout, and that's probably why I wasn't working out. I think that's why it was harder as well, right? Because I couldn't get away from my head for a second on something, and so again, sit in the sauna, it'll cook that out of there, no worries. So I sat for 40 and then got in the cold plunge. But what the bigger thing is, like in the past, had I done all that, like especially like legs, everybody's like hates fucking leg days because that muscle hurts for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And you're like, I can't wait to do abs. I can't wait to do upper body, whatever. But going into the sauna, going into the cold plunge, wake up the next morning, regardless of the workout, there's no pain. My joints do not hurt at all. And I think part of that is obviously the diet as well. But it's like, I could do the same workout on my legs, maybe not to 100% capacity, but I could do it right now with you. And I've never felt like that working out before, ever.
Well, definitely a big thing of what the cold does is it dampens like the swelling response. And so that's why a lot of people say, well, and this is actually true, they don't just say this, like if your goal is hypertrophy to get bigger, which yours isn't, then you shouldn't do cold after your workout. Mm-hmm. Because what you want to maximize is adaptation, not necessarily recovery. And so a certain amount of swelling and all the stuff that comes with being very sore after a workout, that's your body adapting to what you just did. And the cold will kind of shut that stuff down, and it'll heal you and make you like ready to go again faster. But because now you've gone from your body adapting to what you just did to recovering from what you just did, you don't get some of those hypertrophy adaptations. So yeah, like I said, for you, it doesn't really matter, but for people who are trying to like put on muscle, they shouldn't do the workout right into the cold.
Okay.
That's what we did when I was fighting, is like most of the camp, we wouldn't have any cold because we're trying to we're trying to change me. We're trying to get me to adapt to all the training that we're doing.
Okay.
But then like 2 weeks before the fight, we're not adapting anymore. Now we're trying to still train so I can stay sharp and then recover as much as possible. So then that's when you do the cold. Yeah.
Interesting. That's crazy. So your body, like if your muscles are swelling, like you're sending a response to your muscles, like, okay, get larger. And then your body would then adapt to that. Like let's say that I was to just work out and not go straight to cold.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, naturally, like I see more definition happening maybe, but you are correct. Like my muscles aren't growing in the fashion that they would have previously grown. Like, I mean, in past iterations of me working out, like doing similar, but more, oddly enough, even more weight. And my muscles in the past had gotten bigger, but now they're just like staying the same size, but getting more defined.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and definitely like you will become stronger. And with the diet that you're on, you're going to be losing weight, and any weight that you lose is going to help define your muscles.
Sure.
But yeah, so for what you're doing, it's not a bad thing at all. And I love the hot cold for a lot of different reasons. Yeah, it's just specifically the hypertrophy thing. But that's why a lot of people are talking about now, like not icing injuries. Like it used to be RICE, right? Rest, ice, elevate, and compress. And now people have kind of moved away from that to more don't ice it, because your body's going to go through the natural swelling process and all that stuff to start to heal. And the reason people put ice on it to begin with is because it would take the swelling away, and then it would feel better in the short run. And so people are like, oh, that feels better. Let's ice shit. But turns out it doesn't actually help it heal. It kind of delays the healing. It just takes the swelling away.
From an actual injury.
From an injury.
So
yeah.
how does the cold plunge, like from what you've gathered or understood, how does the cold plunge then start the healing process? You know, if the same methodology is there, like, let's say, like, because you're kind of, I mean, you're not injuring your body, but you're kind of putting it towards, you know, I mean, you're working out and then you're going right into the cold plunge and it begins that healing process. But you're saying like if you ice something, it doesn't actually heal. Yeah,
I guess it's not healing. It's just like a reset back to kind of like homeostasis, what you were. Like you either injure yourself or you work out hard, and then your body wants to go through a certain process to adapt or to heal. And the cold does a lot to like shut that process down and bring you back to just like homeostasis, where you're not necessarily healing, you're not adapting, but you feel good, and you are like, it takes you back to what you were before you had that injury or before you work out or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, like it just stops. It slows down the natural process that your body goes through in order to adapt, whether that's to an injury, right? Because there's an adaptation process to that. And yeah, it doesn't do anything for the healing. It just takes the swelling away. Gotcha. And I guess that's kind of the same with the with working out, right? Like when you train super hard, you create microfractures and tears and stuff like that. And that's not exactly an injury, but it's a type of injury.
Sure.
And your body swells and it goes through that same process in order to adapt to that. And then the cold will just shut that down and reset you. And it will let you recover and feel good, but not necessarily adapt.
Okay. Gotcha. So I guess that would be the same thing too, like with joints. I always know, like in the past, never did cold plunge ever. I honestly rarely did sauna. And I kind of just recently got into that, but like I would always have like joint pains, like especially like if it was an arm day, like the inside of my elbow, like I don't know what that part of your body is called, but the inner elbow is would be like really sore, like almost like tendon type sore. You know what I mean? Like on the workout, like you want to like almost like hyperextend and sort of stretch that section of your arm. And so now I don't get that. And I'm sure that's obviously because of the cold. I mean, or is that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not sure how hot and cold affects joints.
Okay.
Actually. But, I think this is kind of more of a general thing, but I think our physiology works like this too. And like nothing gets turned on inside your comfort zone. Like large parts of your physiology can just turn off and chill when you're in your comfort zone because there's nothing novel around. There's nothing to like wake you up and spark your interest and get you going. There's nothing that your body needs to do, and your physiology is lazy. So the more it can slow down and just shut down and conserve energy, it will. So if you're in your comfort zone, that's what your body is going to do. And what I like about hot and cold is it takes you way outside of your body's like physiological comfort zone. Say like 75 degrees is most people's comfort zone. It takes you way outside of those, and it will turn on parts of your physiology that normally won't get turned on if you just stay in that at that 75 degrees kind of range. And I always think about it kind of evolutionarily. Like we were made to experience very hot, very cold, temperate, like only very recently did we have like parkas and jackets all the time and fires and indoor temperature control and all that shit all the time. Normally throughout human history, we were kind of subject to whatever the weather was doing.
Sure.
And that's how we've evolved. And I think if you kind of stick with what we've evolved for, you're normally better off. If you just like, if you just take us out of that atmosphere and put us just in a comfortable space. And you can think about this with like, with training or any kind of workout. If you just take somebody and you put them in a comfortable space on a couch or whatever for long enough, they'll start to atrophy. And I think it's the same thing with temperature or anything inside your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is a place to go like retreat, relax, recoup, and then it's a place to leave again so that you don't atrophy.
Sure. That makes absolute sense. That's a pretty damn good analogy.
Yeah. And I think you can carry that through to anything like intellectual stuff. If you're always in like the same group of people, they never challenge you on your thoughts or anything like that. Your thought process will start to atrophy and match reality less and less. Same thing with working out, same thing with temperature. I think, I'm always very wary of like my comfort zone. It's a place to, like I said, like to come and retreat and relax and then leave again pretty soon. Because I always view comfort zones as like an alive thing as well, where you can either feed them and they can grow, or you can ignore them and they shrink around you until your comfort zone becomes the inside of your house or even the inside of your room or whatever. And everything outside of that makes you uncomfortable. So if you want a robust comfort zone, one that kind of encompasses the world or encompasses like lots of different areas, so you can go and be comfortable at different people's tables, around different people and crowds, by yourself, whatever, then you have to always be pressing at the edges of those comfort zones, make sure it stays robust.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way to look at it. Yeah. Kind of constantly pressing on where you're like, whatever that is, like it's almost like if you feel the anxiety from it or whatever it is, like just lean into it. You know what I mean? You're gonna grow from it naturally, right? You're growing that comfort zone. Yep. Which is, I've never thought about it in that manner.
And this is like a sort of like a Jordan Peterson-y thing, but I like it is like where you want to be is like 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
Sure.
Right? Because then you have like you're not in total chaos where you're like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And you're not in total comfort. You're like in that optimal where you're engaged. You kind of know what's going on, but you're learning at the same time. Like kind of right at the edge of that yin yang.
Yeah.
I think like that's where you want to be, and that's where you grow without breaking yourself or getting lost.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good way to look at that, man. That makes total sense, especially like, in a weird way, I'm just like kind of self-reflecting on I've been pushing myself outside of my comfort zone because like physically, like I haven't worked out in so long and I'm doing that. But also like, you know, I kind of talked about this the other day is like, I've been pushing myself away from like some of the like the friend scope, right? Like the friends that like were kind of part of that greater like comfort level, right? And so it's like I know that they're kind of still there. They're always going to be there, but it's like I need to kind of press the edges of that comfort zone, and that doesn't necessarily meet new people. Like I could sometimes give two shits about meeting new people,
Yeah.
but for me, it's like almost like not necessarily like cutting ties, but being comfortable and being not comfortable by myself out here, like almost like on the wings of it, right? Just like constantly pressing, you know, like how far can you push this, or how, you know, how much can you do that? And it's like, I've noticed that it's like really kind of, it's been challenging, but it like almost like self-lights a fire under your ass. You know what I mean? To where you're like, you almost like, it's again, going back to the addictive, like when you meet that like edge of that comfort and you're like, you can tell yourself like, man, I can't really do this. But then somehow you fixate on it and you get through it. And it's like, almost like, what's the next challenge? Like what's the next layer of comfort that I can kind of breach? Even if it's just like you say, one step, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yep.
It really becomes like this like mental game with yourself of like, what is my comfort level? Like how much can I press myself through this?
Yeah. And I always think like, you know, fighting was the thing that I did forever that pushed me out of my comfort zone and made me nervous and made me practice things like bravery and just like all these like kind of mental skills that you don't need when you're in your comfort zone. You don't need to be brave. You don't need to like persevere. You don't need to do all these things that like once you leave your comfort zone, or say like kind of like some shit happens and you're pressed out of your comfort zone. And now all of a sudden you're going to need all those things. You're going to need to be brave. You're going to need to think on your feet, and you're going to need to persevere through adversity and stuff like that. And all those things are practiced skills. And if you just think that like, well, I'll just do it when it gets here, like, and you haven't practiced in years, you've just been in your comfort zone, you will fail that test when it gets there. You have to have those little practices, not every day, but on the regular. And I think that keeps you sharp. It keeps you proud of yourself. It keeps you kind of like engaged with like who you are under circumstances that aren't just like who you are in your living room or around your family and stuff like that, which is great. But that's the point of your comfort zone. But it's like who you are outside of that is like the parts of you that get tested. And I think it's hard to know, like, I think it's really hard to know what you're going to act like during those tests. A lot of people would like to think like, oh, when this test shows up, I'll handle it like this. But you don't know. Like, my first few fights, I always viewed myself as like a tough kid and stuff like that. And I was like, when I fight, I'll just do it like this. But then you start to go out there and you get so full of adrenaline and you get taken over by nerves and all these like little inputs and spirits and like nerves and attitudes and stuff like that don't normally show up, and they totally change the way that your brain works. Changes your entire brain chemistry. And then you have to deal with that while you're going through this thing. And like, you don't end up showing up the way that you think at all, unless you practice it and you get comfortable there. Like my first few fights, I was good in the gym and I was like loose and comfortable, and I was one of the better kids. But when I fought, I would get scared. I would get super stiff. I would run out of gas right away. I would start to panic breathe and all that shit. And that took me a really long time to like start to get under control. But you only find out stuff out about yourself and learn how to deal with it is if you like voluntarily kind of step into those areas. And you should voluntarily step into those areas, because eventually those areas are going to come crashing into your life.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like, whatever it is, we're getting older. Like eventually our parents are going to die or whatever. All that stuff is coming. And if you don't practice that stuff a little bit on the way, that stuff when it comes is going to crush you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it can be little things like you were telling me, or you're saying this, and I was just thinking about like, you never know how you're going to react to a situation until it's like there. Like, and it's very hard to practice these scenarios. Like I was driving yesterday through the middle of Bayfield going to the gas station and had my windows down. And like these like 3 young teenagers are walking on the side of the road. And like as soon as I like get by them, like one of them, like it was just like being like a young kid, like no, whatever. Like it was probably no bigger than it was with him just yelling some bullshit. But anyway, he like yells out, like it drops an N-bomb, like in my window, like just joking, like just being a smart ass punk kid. It is what it is. And like, obviously I'm white. That doesn't affect me. Right. But it was like, I instantly like spidey tingly, like, what did he just say? And I was like going to the grocery store and like, all of a sudden I just felt like the anxiety kind of go up, like, and then I started thinking like, man, it was like my body went to like, I was going to confront that situation. Right. And it's like, almost like, I mean, just like you say, like obviously it's completely different when you're fighting, but it felt like that. It was just like, this is a confrontation, like your body's getting heightened and like your like anxiety's coming up and like, how are you going to react? And it's like, I stopped for a second. Like I was going to just talk to the kid and be like, hey, and so instead I drove to the grocery store, got my stuff, thought about the situation coming back, and I saw the kids at the gas station. So I pulled in and I was like, hey man, like I know you're just joking around and like, but this is like minutes. This is like, 10, 15 minutes after. So I had a moment to kind of process it and get away from that like fight or flight feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just talk to him like, I know you were joking around. I know you're a 13-year-old kid. I know you go to the mid school, like, but you have to understand like certain things like that you can't say, right? And it would, if it was anything different, maybe it wouldn't hit me as hard. But and he was like scared, like, oh God, like that's the guy that I yelled at, So I know that he was just being like a young punk, and like there was no weight to it, right? It was just like maybe his buddies dared him, and so it wasn't like I wasn't angry, and nobody else probably would have angry. But again, you don't know how you're gonna get through that scenario, like when it presents itself, if you're not like practiced for it, know. But it's like, how do you sometimes like physical fighting? Sure, absolutely. Like you train all the time, right? So that way that hopefully your body can go through these motions and attacks and counterattacks. And then the more you get into a ring, the more comfortable you get. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or maybe you never get comfortable with it. But like
you don't really get comfortable with it. Like the way that I think about it is like, I'm scared every time. Like you can take fear. There's a lot of different emotions that go into it, but you could take fear. Fear is a simple one because that shows up every time. And at first, when it shows up, fear feels like a stranger that you don't want in the room with you. And you're like, fuck, dude, get out of the room. Like I'm supposed to perform. I'm supposed to do the shit. You can't be here. And then that stuff never goes away. But what does happen is like, you get used to it, and then you're expecting fear to show up and walk into the room. And then when it does, you're like, there you are. Okay. You're cool. Go sit down over there. Like you're here with me. You're always going to be part of it, but I know how to handle you now. I know how to have you sit over there in the corner and put you behind my bravery and my skill set and all those other things, put you in order of whatever feelings I kind of want to like figure out. You can never get rid of it, but you can put it in its place.
It's kind of crazy to think about, man. It still blows me away. Like having known you forever, like it genuinely blows me away that you were a professional fighter. Like that's what you.
Me too. Like as soon as I'm like,
it's just
that's a weird trip.
I mean, it's awesome to see you kind of branch away from that. But it's like talking to people that enjoy, buy the fights and watch the fights, and it's crazy. Like the outsider's world, like from my perspective, and like we view you guys in a sense, as a gladiator. Like you're going in there, whether I mean, we talked about on the first episode, the first time you're on the show, it's like maybe you personally didn't want to kill the guy, but you wanted to win the battle. And then there's like legit other gladiators that want to kill that guy.
Yeah, they don't give a shit about the battle or the money. It's more like they're going to kill somebody or they're going to beat the shit out of somebody. And this is just a venue through which they can do it without getting in trouble.
But it just blows me away from like a innocent bystander, spectator to watch. I mean, to see somebody get in the cage and to see some of those fights that you had, it's like, it's brutal. I mean, you can clearly see that it takes an insane amount of bravery, insane amount of confidence, an insane amount of skill and time and passion, and all to come down to a potential like missed slip punch. You know what I mean? Like that entire preparation, like all the camps, like you guys talk about, and it's like you never really know. It could be just like a momentary misjudgment and like, bam.
Yep.
It's like it lights out. Thank God it wasn't a sword. It wasn't my head. It's just a fist, but or a knee or so. But it's, every time I think, it still fucking blows me away that you did that for how many years were you like a professional?
I think I was pro for 7 years.
God,
or something like that.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's a long time to fight.
Yeah,
to train.
And then I fought a long time before that.
Yeah.
I've fought almost nonstop since I was 21.
Yeah.
I'm 36. But I guess I quit when I was 33, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I mean, it's definitely practice and like putting in the work, building a skill set, and then learning to have faith in that skill set and just trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Because that chatter happens all the time of like, okay, I'm pretty good, but all I have to do is one misstep, one little mistake, one misjudgment of always going this way and I'm going this way. And I could wind up in the hospital, which like you kind of wind up in the hospital a lot anyway, but like a lot of times it's just for like stitches and little shit like that. But like, one little misstep and you could really end up in the hospital. And that gets really scary and it's hard not to let that chatter take over.
Yeah.
So you really have to just like build a skill set and then learn to trust the skill set. Because if you're in there going, okay, this is for real now. If he does this, then what if I do that? And then what if I do that? Then you get paralysis by analysis, which I've had once in my amateur career. And you just don't do anything because everything seems like a wrong decision. Like, I'll do this, but then what if he does that? And then I'll do that, but maybe he does it. And then you just don't do anything.
And you're thinking this like in the moment.
Yeah.
Like rapid fire.
You can't.
Okay.
What happens is people they view thinking and paying attention as the same thing, but they're not the same thing. Thinking will fuck up your ability to pay attention because thinking puts you in your head into hypothetical situations. What if, and where if I'm paying attention, I'm not really thinking anything. I'm just paying attention to what's happening in the moment. And that's so much more powerful in a fight situation than thinking. And I'd say that's probably more powerful in most situations than thinking is the ability to pay attention.
That's wild. Yeah. I mean, like the vast majority of people, like even if you've been in a fight, the vast majority of people that aren't like trained fighters, it's been like a street brawl and it's usually at a bar or whatever. And it happens out of nowhere and it's kind of like wild and crazy and maybe there's a punch thrown. And so if somebody's been in a fight, that's probably the type or kind of fight that they've been in.
Yeah.
And there's really no fucking training for that. It's just like, oh, I got lucky. I clocked the guy. We got the fuck out of the bar. Right. But for you to like train your brain in a sense to where like you almost become, complacent is not the word that I'm trying to search for, but like you become so skilled at it that you trust your skills that they're going to they're going to come to the surface when they're called upon, like almost like without you. Like, so for me to try and put myself, like I've been in street fights, many of them, but I was never trained. It was like very lucky and sometimes not so much. You go on with a black eye,
which is not so bad.
No, it's not that bad. But it's like, there was never a moment to where it was like, we know we're fighting for weeks ahead of the thing. We're coming into the table, both trained, and like, we're here to do this. Now I want to make sure that my trained body and my trained mind knows how to react at a certain point, and I want to be calm about it. Like, that's insane for me to try and think about, okay, put yourself into that frame of thought. It's wild. It's, I don't know that there's any other career. Like, I mean, maybe there's other careers, like probably, like, obviously not combat sports, but like, like if it was like a competitive, like a football or something where there's like an impact type of a sport, granted they're trained, and they practice and they obviously have a set of skills that they're going to put to use. But a little bit different, I think, maybe than fighting. Maybe.
It is a little bit different, but the commonality I think in all sports are all like skills that you're trying to get really sharp is you want to take as much as you can through the 4 stages of learning. So the 4 stages of learning, or at least a model that I like, is unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, consciously competent, and then unconsciously competent. And so unconsciously incompetent is like, say, I've never heard of fighting and I'm not good at it. I've never heard about it. Like, yeah. And then one day I hear about it. I'm like, oh, now I know about fighting, but I still suck at it. Right. And then I start training. And after a while, I get some skills. And if I think really hard about it, I can manage the skills. And then eventually that will cross over from consciously competent, where I'm thinking about it and I can do it, to unconsciously competent, where I can do it like I'm tying my shoes, or I can do it while I'm talking to somebody else about something else.
Gotcha.
I'm unconscious and I can still execute it well. And then when you reach to that point, being conscious about it actually fucks you up.
Gotcha.
And I do this all the time with people that I'm training. I'll be like, okay, now think about your hands. Make sure they're coordinated. And at first, it fucks everything up because now they're thinking about it, and they're like, this feels so weird. But same thing, like say you're a musician, I'm sure. And you've heard of like flow states, right? When you're just in the flow, you're barely thinking about it. But then all of a sudden you're like, what is my hand doing? You're trying to think about it step by step. It gets slow and clunky and all that shit, right? So it's the same thing with fighting. You want to put as much skill as you can into the unconsciously competent bin, and then just trust it and let it run, which is really hard to do.
Fuck yeah. I was going to say, that sounds like, I can equate to it in the way that you broke it down there, because there are, like, in most people's jobs, when they become efficient at it, or a master, 10,000 hours, 12,000 hours, whatever, whatever people like to classify it as, you do become unconsciously competent at that skill. Like, most people can do their job if they've done it long enough. It kind of just becomes like, everything's just moving on its own. So I could look at it like that, but I still go back to the fact of, like, I don't know, man. Yeah, you're fighting. You've got another person in there that's like, that's always the variable of your skills are there, but it's still it just blows me away to, like, for the, like, simplest analogy I can say, like, I was an electrician for 17 years. You know, I would be literally talking to my brother on days like cracking jokes, like fucking quoting Will Ferrell, and like wiring up a panel, like, yeah, hot. Like, this could shock the shit out of me. Yeah. I've done this 1,000 times.
Where if I was doing it, I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah. And that's a variable, but in my brain, that variable is significantly reduced because I've done it so many times, and I'm aware of where my hands are at the whole time. Right. And I'm looking at the panel, but I'm having a conversation over here. But I view your variable, the other person with the fucking punches and the kicks and the submissions and the takedowns, as a way larger variable.
It is. But that's why it's almost more important not to be in your head thinking. Gotcha. Because there's a lot of variables and the landscape is changing on a continuous basis. And it's changing faster than the rate of speech. Yeah. And when you're thinking to yourself consciously about whatever you're thinking about, it takes place at the rate of speech, right? You think to yourself about the same rate as you talk to yourself. But fighting is way more dynamic and takes place at a way faster rate than talking. So if you are thinking at the rate of talking, you're always going to be behind the 8 ball, because you need a machine that can go a lot faster than that. And the unconscious mind is a much bigger, much more powerful machine than the conscious mind. We can only hold a couple pieces of information at a time in our conscious mind. And like I said, it runs about the pace of speech. Okay. So if you're doing shit that's taking place faster than that you have to react way faster, you can't be thinking. You have to be paying attention. And so I always just go back to that. It's like, that's really like the concept that's helped me out a lot, is because you kind of think, all right, fuck that one up. All right, more thinking, more da-da-da. It's like, not less thinking, more paying attention. And in fact, thinking will fuck up your ability to pay attention.
That is a wild way to look at it, man. Yeah, that's crazy. So I saw something the other day, and I know you just moved back to the area, but it was kind of like you went a little bit quiet on like, let's just say your Instagram channel. I think it was Instagram that I follow. And I know you were moving back and you're kind of getting your thing going, but it was like you put up something, and it was like, I'm loosely paraphrasing, I'm sorry, but it was like, basically it kind of seemed like you were like, and I know from our last show, like you had kind of already sort of closed the door, shut the curtain on the fighting world. Yeah, I think I like just
had my last fight or something like that. Yeah. It was a couple months after.
Yeah, but you were like, I'm kind of like, I built this page, I built this thing to like obviously promote myself and like push further into the fighting career. But it seems like now, like you've sort of moved past it, like in life, and you're doing this new like health and fitness thing. And so like, how did I mean, I know you've done it for a while, but it seemed like you were kind of like showing the world for like the first time of like, or at least making like an announcement like, hey, I'm like, Mr. Nice Guy fighting is done. Like I'm here, I'm doing this new thing. So like what's going on with all that?
Well, the fighting was cool, but I think, I mean, always I viewed myself more of as a teacher than a fighter. And my goal was never to be champ. Maybe it was just because I didn't think I could, or I don't know, but I just didn't really have that drive. What my real drive was on the back end of fighting. I wanted to be Yoda, and I want to be able to guide people through what I've been able to go through, which is one is just like the health and fitness. I think becoming healthier and becoming more fit does wonders for obviously your physical health, but also your mental health. But I think on top of that, fighting does a huge number for like your self-esteem, the way you carry yourself in the world, and then also just your ability to connect with other people. So roughhousing is a mammalian universal. Every mammal that you can think of roughhouses. And we're mammals like them. We should be roughhousing. And if you see kids who have been, so they did this experiment with rats where they took a bunch of young rats and they separated them and they denied them rough and tumble play. And then when they got older, they introduced them back into the rat population. And what they found was that those rats that have been separated and couldn't rough play with the other rats missed a critical stage of learning. And now they couldn't engage in proper mating behavior. So they couldn't get a girlfriend, and they couldn't create long lasting relationships with other rats. So they couldn't make friends and they couldn't get a girlfriend. And it was all a consequence of them being deprived of rough and tumble play as they were young, because when they were younger. And the same thing happens to us. And like a way that I can think about it is, say you're rolling jiu-jitsu and there's a class of 20 people. You go up to somebody and you high five them and you get ready to roll. And you could pick up on their energy right away. They're already tired and all right, I got to bring it down to their level or whatever. And then maybe like you're down at their level and you can start getting them excited again to play with you. And like 90% of our, the way we communicate is nonverbal, right? And fighting is all nonverbal communication, especially sparring, especially like practicing with each other. So you get really, really used to picking up on these nonverbal cues, especially when you're in this like very close quarter, touching each other's sweaty contact. I feel like it's helped me like stay calm, hold space, and be able to pick up on what other people are feeling. But I've really seen it with a few kids with autism. Like that's their classic problem is they can't pick up on social cues, and that's why they get ostracized a lot of the time from social situations.
Yeah.
And these kids that I saw started doing jiu-jitsu, and at first it was like they didn't like being touched. They really couldn't pick up on social cues. And after a couple of years of doing jiu-jitsu, they were much better, much more comfortable around people and able to pick up much easier on social cues. And I think, that's an extreme example because they have autism, but I think for people that happens too. And then for some reason in the last like 50 years, we've decided that roughhousing is bad and we shouldn't do it. But like every little kid loves roughhousing, boy, girl, everybody loves roughhousing. And I think part of especially dad, but also mom's responsibility is to engage in that roughhouse with their kids and show them like the emotional peaks and valleys of what that roughhousing means.
And what aspect? Like, what do you mean? Can you?
So say somebody wants to like play, or you go up to somebody and you want to roughhouse with them. Mm-hmm. Say it's your kid and you want to roughhouse with them, but you're not sure if they're into it. So you start slow and you kind of prod them, and then they give you a little something back, and then you're like, okay, now we're roughhousing. And then it kind of like, it grows into this peak where you're both having fun, you're both tossing each other around. And then one person starts to kind of get sick of it, or they want to do something else, and that peak kind of falls off. And then you have to kind of follow them with that. And if you want to keep going, you have to find a way to get them back into it, back into that peak, or you follow them back out and you mellow out and you kind of start to disengage.
Gotcha.
But none of that stuff is generally like explicitly talked about, right? It's not like, okay, I'm going to push you. And then if you like it, you're going to push me. And then we're going to roughhouse for 7 minutes. And then I'm going to it's all nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, just looking at like I was saying before, I always look at things evolutionarily, and if they fit evolutionarily, then it just gives it more credence in my mind. And like I said, roughhousing is a mammalian universal, and we're mammals. And I think I think that's an important part that we've kind of got disconnected from, with like a lot of things in health and fitness, right? We've kind of got disconnected from like the natural rhythm of the rising and setting sun. We've got disconnected from the foods that we're supposed to eat because there's so much super tasty but awful for you foods laying around. And then, I'm not one to bash culture, but there's stuff that culture says about like how you interact with kids or how to roughhouse or not roughhouse or whatever. And I think disconnecting yourself from that stuff that's like clearly a part of our evolution is normally never a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot, there's a ton of studies about multiple aspects of that kind of evolutional change to where we have kind of become disconnected. And like one of the simplest things I see now, and it having been in the trades for so many years, like you talk with people and it's like people almost, it's like the trades, or I shouldn't say the trades, but like people that work like a physical job, like they're out there on their tools or whatever they're doing, or they're digging, they're like out doing physical labor for their job. That's almost becoming looked down upon or like ostracized as a job. Like that's not a job you want. You don't want that, right? But in the reality of it is like when you start to look at some of these studies I've been reading, it actually has so much more benefits to your human characteristics from like a natural stance. Like it's better for you physically to go work a hard job than it is for you to sit in front of a desk all day.
Yeah.
It's like you could, if you could drop marbles into a bucket, it quantifies in that way. Like it's so drastic. But it's funny that you say like, society is kind of pushing away from that because it's not easy money or it's not the most comfortable way to make a living. But yet it has profound impacts on you, or versus the type of job or the type of category that's, highly sought after, right?
Yeah.
It's actually more beneficial to do the other one that people are like, oh no, very similar to like roughhousing. Like, and in a weird way, like this is crazy, but I had a conversation the other day about a family and they homeschool their kids. And I've always had kind of weird concepts around that because like I think you do miss out on a lot of like social cues, like especially from like a young age. Like they say that there's so much mental and growth stimulation from little kids like playing in a playground.
Yep.
Like if you don't know that, like it's hard as a parent, like having young kids, like you're like, you want to like constantly do the hover and make sure your kid doesn't get hurt, but they learn so much from a playground. They learn so much from being in these social environments. They learn the awkwardness. They learn how to read social cues. But this parent was like, there's definitely certain things that we like about homeschooling, but we believe in putting our kids into, like taking them to school sports where there's a lot of programs where they can still play baseball or soccer or whatever, or be in choir. So they get that social interaction, because like if you just don't have that, and then all of a sudden you're just met with the world at graduation and you're like, all right, how am I supposed to do this? Like, well, I know how to read my sister's cues, because we homeschooled for 15 years together.
Or my parents. I know how to interact with adults, but nobody my age.
Yeah. So it's like going back to your statements, like that interactive like world, and break it down to its very core, like roughhousing is great. Like you will know real quick if you piss somebody off and they come around and they got tears in their eyes and they're angry and they want to punch you because you twisted the ankle a little bit too much, right? On the trampoline. It's like, that's a reaction. Like you can't do that because it's going to get a negative reaction.
Yeah. And roughhousing shows you where the edges are.
Sure.
Like how hard I can tease and push and fuck with my friends before they get pissed, because a certain amount they like, and that's like part of the fun. And you go more than that and it kind of turns on itself. But I remember growing up and like Ryan and I were always like roughhousing, and we had like fake swords and fake guns and all that shit in the house. And when we would have other kids over, if they grew up in a household where they could also roughhouse, everybody was safe. Like we could play with the fake swords, we could roughhouse, we could put on little gloves and box and all that shit. It was only when we had kids over who were not allowed to do these things where people were getting hurt. Like I remember having one kid over who didn't have any brothers and sisters. And and just never roughhoused. And we gave him a sword, and it was a fake sword, but it was a wooden sword. And he's like, a fake sword, and smoked Ryan in the side of the head. Gave him a concussion right away. And it was like, it was a consequence of he had no idea where the edges were. He had no idea how to engage in rough and tumble play because he was never allowed to. So as soon as he did, he went way off the mark with it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happen. So Jonah is 11, my daughter, London, is 8. And so I'm hyper protective over them both, right? I don't know why. It's like, I'm weird about it. But like, obviously I think naturally as a dad, you're more protective over your daughter than you are your son. Cause like, he can get his ass beat or he can go beat some ass. But my daughter, like, don't, she's in the bubble. Don't mess with her.
And there's a little bit of something where it's like, all right, go out there. Let's see what you can do. Go have an adventure. And with your daughter, you're like, no, fucking.
Keep them at bay.
Yeah.
So it's like, they do roughhouse and they play. And like, but my daughter she'll freak out. Like but I can also see it's my son testing the boundaries and part probably because like, they are a boy and girl and quite a bit apart in age, not too far. Super close with each other, love each other, friends. But like when they play, like Jonah weighs 100 pounds almost now, and she's like 43.
Yeah,
like she's tiny. And so it's like there's only so much that he can push that kind of edge, and like, but like he'll accidentally like twist a little too hard or something, and it's like he's testing the boundaries. But I feel like now that you say this, it's like, maybe like I'm being a little bit too like, kind of guarded around her. Because she's got to learn those social cues, even though they're with her brother. He also needs to learn it as well. And they do wrestle and they play. Like if something happens and he hurts her, like I go into like dad protective mode. Like, Joel, what are you doing? Like it's your sister. And he's like, and that's
fine because you don't want her to get hurt.
Yeah.
But there's two things. One, you want him to know where the edges are, so he doesn't keep crossing the edges. And then for her, you want her to be able to vocalize and stand up for where her edges are.
Gotcha.
So she's practicing defining her own edges and saying, I'm comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with this. Stop fucking doing this. Or this is fun. Let's keep going. And he's learning to push the boundaries and go, the boundaries are here. All right, I'm going to pull back just a little bit. Yeah. And you don't know where the boundaries are until you've crossed them a couple of times.
Sure. And it's obviously clearly it's dependent on the person that's opposite of you, right? If you're
absolutely.
There's Jonah right there. He's up in Denver. Hold on, let me take this.
Yeah, go for it.
No, you're good. Hey, what are you doing?
Hi, we just ate dinner.
Okay. Awesome. I'm doing a podcast. Did you guys have fun at that game?
No, we lost the...
No, did you have fun? I know you didn't play, but did you guys have fun?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we did.
All right, I'm on this podcast. I love you, buddy. I'll see you soon. I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, bye.
All right. He's on his first trip across state without me or Simone. He went up with a buddy.
Oh, I saw that post that you did about that. Yeah,
they're going up. They're going up watching 2 high school games, and then they're going to go to the Rapids game, Colorado Rapids game tomorrow. Yeah. And they get to walk on the field, get a jersey, hang out with the players. So he's like super pumped. But it was like one of those like, yeah, go. But like it made me kind of sad this morning. Like, he was up at 6:30 and I'm having coffee and he's like all packed up, ready to go. His coaching. So his coach is actually the high school coach as well. And so they show up at the door and he's like, all right, see you later, bye. And I'm like, all right. Like, all right, cool. You're going
that's it
across the state. Like, so it definitely brings you back in and they grow up quick, man. So, but yeah, so like, he's like learning the boundaries of his sister, right? Obviously wrestling, that's his, his little sister at the house. But oddly enough, like strange he called. So he got moved into a position this year. He's like, you played soccer, right?
Yep.
Okay. So he's a CDM. And they're still playing 9v9. So he's like a center defensive mid, but it's like, it's a attacking and defensive position because you have a reduced number, right? So once it steps up to 11v11, it could be like a cam, which is like a center attacking mid, which is strictly more focused towards like forwarding the ball or attacking. Or it could be like a CDM, center defensive mid, that has an attacking responsibility as well as a defensive responsibility. Nonetheless, that position, you kind of have to be a bruiser.
Yeah, you have to be able to run a lot.
Yeah, you got to be able to run a lot. You got to be able to like slide tackle. You got to be able to bump shoulders and just kind of be like stocky and like, let's fucking get after it. And so I was talking to his coach the other day and like, I've watched him progress. I think last time we spoke, it was like, he was a different person, different player.
Oh, cool.
And so this year he was like super sad because he got moved from left mid or left wing, however your offense is set up, to this position. And I was like, are you sad because you don't know the position and you're nervous? Or are you sad because you think that it's a lesser position than where you were? And then it's like, he boiled down to, it's like, I just don't know it. I don't know how to play it. So anyways, first game, scores a goal, and he's like, fucking love this position. And I was like, you're gonna be, but his coach like, dude, Jonah's a bruiser. Like he's getting tough, you know what I mean? So, and on the field, I can watch him like, he'll take a tumble or get smoked or get pushed down, and it kind of like stings, but he's up again and he's like, oh, motherfucker, like I can see it in his face. And so like he's out there every day, like checking those boundaries. So then it's like, that's kind of carrying over into the household.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, this is not another 11-year-old boy, dude. Like chill out. This is your 8-year-old sister.
Totally.
So I gotta make sure that I'm like, hey, not so much. So, but, yeah. So that little kid, he cracked me up, dude. He's got me acting like a dad, man. And I'm like, I know he's going to go to a stadium, and I'm like, tomorrow I was like, all right, you got your phone, again, it's like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like those steps of life. You just kind of gotta at some point, like let go. Cause it's going to happen inevitably. Right.
Yeah.
Just so like,
and you don't want to be the dad that like can't let go and doesn't let go.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't allow them to do anything. I want him to experience that. I want him to, know that's like, hey, I got your back. I'm here. Like, yeah, you can call me. I'm on a podcast, do your thing. And I think that amount of like, we trust you with this freedom until you show us that we can't trust you with that freedom, right? It's like, we trust you with it. And granted, he's with adults, and he's with people that I trust, know, like, and trust. And so it's all good, but still it's interesting to see like a kid start to kind of grow. Like, you kind of, this morning's post, like it just hit hard. It was like you're not ready for it. You don't know how you're going to react in that situation until that situation is in front of you. Like, what did I do? Cool. Boom. It's killing me inside to see you go. Like, shit. I'm jealous. I wish I was going to Denver with you to watch the game, or to be there to watch you walk onto the field with a professional player. Like, that's a fucking huge deal.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
get to see that. Like, soccer is his and I's thing. Like, I'm at every practice, at every game. And it's like, but it's like, I'm like, you know what? This is a bigger moment for him. Like, he would maybe enjoy that with me there. I would enjoy it with him, but it's like, this is also like his life, and this is his thing and his experience. And now he's going to have a memory that's going to be with him and his buddy on the Colorado Rapids field talking. He might be like able to meet like one of his favorite players is Abubakar, and he's like, maybe I get to meet him. I was like, I bet you do. That's amazing. Like, so if he gets to experience that, it's like, he's going to have that memory of his own. And I'm like, I was going through all those emotions this morning with like, like, I'm so happy, so proud, so whatever. But the reality sets in, and you're like, hey man, your fucking kids are growing. They're going to grow. There's no stopping it, right? That's a definite. And it's like, how do you handle these situations? It's like, you don't know until you're met with them. It's like, so, but proud of that little dude.
Yeah.
He was becoming a little man.
That's awesome. You said he's 11 now?
He's 11. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And he's a smart ass. He's a total smart ass, but
good. He's supposed to be when you're 11.
Yeah.
I fucking was, dude. Yeah. Like, I look back at myself when I was that age, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know how anybody put up with me. Yeah. I was like in like full emo goth mode with like chains on my shirt and fucking like mohawk in my face.
Yeah, for sure. Oh God. Yeah, man. Yeah. It goes. I was just talking to Courtney this morning. I had to go drop off some gear I borrowed. And it's hilarious. I was telling him like, I was like, you have a baby, like a baby. And everybody tells you like, dude, cherish the moments because shit flies by. Like, you know what I mean? And like, you hear that, and even Courtney's in the same situation, and I'm talking to him, I'm about to like pitch him, be like, no, that's real, man. I've gone through that. Like, it goes like a blink of an eye, like, and like, but your brain as a young parent, you always just go, yeah, shut the fuck up. Like, I'm going to deal with it. And then when it hits, you're like, everybody was right. They were all right.
Yeah.
All the, hey, make sure you do this more than you think you're ever going to have to. And it's just like, but when you're met with it, you're like, they're fucking right, dude. Like, I should have spent a little more time. I didn't, whatever. And then like, so it's just crazy when these times like hit you. You're like, all right. Like, here's the next like phase.
It's tough though. Cause like, what do you do about that? Like, everybody could spend a little more time with their family or their kids or their loved ones or anything like that.
Yeah.
Doing what they're passionate about or whatever. But then there's also the daily grind, work to do, bills to pay, blah, blah, blah. And those deserve their due too. They have to, otherwise you go homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I like that advice, and it's good to be mindful about that stuff, but definitely like 'cause you hear the same thing even with kids who or people that don't have kids, like older people who are like, life flies by. Make sure you do this, and you're like, all right, I will, and it's a good thing to be mindful about. But like, what am I going to do with that? Like, I still got to go to work. I still got to like,
that doesn't pay the bills. Yeah, I think I think about that a lot too, because there are things that you want to do, but you got a job and you got bills to pay, and you've got to grind, you got to hustle if you want to make it in this world, and that's the whole card fucking reality. But I think the time that you do get it needs to be value added, right? Don't allow people to take up your space that doesn't add value, like that you don't appreciate.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I've been realizing through this like health kick and this like sobriety thing is like, I don't want to fucking waste my time with somebody who I don't want to spend my time with.
Yeah.
Cut and fucking dry. If that's family, if that's friends, that's whoever. And it's like, cause it's like you're grinding no matter what you're doing. Like, it's a constant battle, and you're always trying to play that ebb and flow of like, you get reminded like, well, you've been working a lot, and like something is sacrificing because you're working, whether that's your relationship with your wife or whatever, like something has to, and then all of a sudden it seems like every once in a while something's weighing, and then somebody reminds you of it, and it comes back the other way. And then you're like, well, shit, now the paycheck's taking a hit, and I gotta,
it's hard to find that perfect balance.
Yeah. But that time though, that time you do spend, I think it needs to be valuable. Like it needs to be worth something, And so, I would say if anything, like I could offer to somebody is like you're never going to be able to spend as much time as you absolutely wanted when that time ceases, right?
But you can be intentional and present when you do have that time.
Fuck yeah.
Like there's a way that you can spend time with people where it's not intentional and you're not present. You're there physically. Like I get this all the time, not so much here, but definitely in San Diego, like people would pay however much to train with me, and then they'd come into the room and they would still be at work. Like their whole mind is taken up with work. They're on their phone half the time. They're thinking about other shit. And then, so they're there and they're working out, but we're not getting into it the way that we can because they're not present and they're not intentional. They're still at work. And you can kind of spend your whole life like that. Like, right. Like that's like the classic, like you can be at home with your wife and just still like this fucking guy at work and and I need to be getting this thing done. And like you're there spending time, but not really. And I think that's a huge part of it is like, you don't really get to choose how much time you have with the people, but what you can choose is to be present and intentional when you're there, and not just like let it go to like, oh, we're just gonna watch TV. No, like let's do this thing, and me and you will do it, and then we'll both be present while we're doing it. And then no matter how much time you have, that's the way to spend your time.
Mm-hmm. That's the. I would say that is the single biggest battle that I'm facing right now. Like all the workout, all the whatever. That's irrelevant. I love it. I enjoy it, and I'm moving forward with it. But like, I was that guy. I still am that guy if I allow myself to slip into that category where like I'm there, but I'm not present.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not intentional. My brain is focused elsewhere. My brain is focused on this deal that's going on over here. And I would even catch myself, and then I'd be like, but I would try and justify it. I'd be like, well, yeah, but you need to make that money, or you need to do this. And then all of a sudden it's like, when you kind of like come full circle to that, you feel fucking awful, because not only did you waste your own time, right? You don't get back those moments of like, hey, I was in the house, but I wasn't even there really.
Yeah.
But like, think about put yourself in like your wife's shoes, put yourself in your kid's shoes. Like they're looking at what? Their dad on a cell phone doing an email at 9:30 at night. And they're thinking, what do they think of you at that point? So it's like this whole like new journey, like I've really started to think about that. And I have found myself kind of slipping, and I'll be like, nope. Like enough's enough. Like, okay, the computer is done. This is done. And I'm nowhere near perfect at it by any means, but I'm cognizant of it. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, okay, all right, you need to reel back. Like now is like the time for you to be here and be present and available for whatever that means. Like if that's cooking dinner, if that's making dinner for the household so you can have a conversation like purposefully, then that's what you got to do, man. Like that other shit, that can all be addressed tomorrow at 6:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
Like right now, so I feel people struggle where it's hard to the society engine that runs the world is like, it's hard to break away from that at times because you feel like, and some people in certain industries, they're rewarded for that sacrifice.
Definitely.
But they don't realize how much of a sacrifice it can be, right? They're sacrificing for somebody else's better. Somebody else, I think the simplest way I could say it is they're sacrificing themselves and their families and their livelihood for somebody else's pocketbook at all expense to themselves, right? So it's hard though, because that's this engine that we've created that is our society, at least in America. Like I don't think that could be in every country. Like I haven't had that experience, but here it's like it is this just constant fucking engine that just doesn't stop.
Culture.
Yeah, and people love that. You know, they will be like, yes, you got X amount of sales, or yes, you work 12 hours and you only billed me for 8. Like, man, you are a stud. And you start to be like, okay, cool. This is what it's supposed to be like, right? This is, cool. And once you come back to it, you realize it, you're like, fuck no, it's not for that. Like, no, like, you know, I'm doing all this work. I'm doing all this sacrifice so that way that it's supposed to, when I originally started doing it, it was supposed to be so that I could support my family and be able to spend time with my family.
Yeah.
Or do the things that I fucking love, not give my entirety to somebody else.
Yep.
And that
can become a little addictive for sure. Making money, especially when you didn't grow up with it or you haven't had it for very long. Seeing something in your bank account is like, oh, it's nice. But I have a lot of like training analogies, but like I always think about it like this, like even if your work is your primary focus, you should learn to put it down every once in a while. Because I always think about it like if I'm holding a 25-pound kettlebell, I wake up in the morning and I pick it up and I start carrying it around. And I've been holding it for 3 hours. After 3 hours, like for the first 5 minutes, 25 pounds is no big deal. After 3 hours, that 25 pounds is killing my arm. And now it's time to go do a kettlebell workout. I'm like, fuck, I've been holding this for 3 hours already. I'm already exhausted. I don't really want anything to do with it. Where it would have been much better for me to actually put the kettlebell all the way down, ignore it. And then when it's time to do the kettlebell workout, pick it up and do the kettlebell workout. That way I can go full blast, put it back down, and then go back to chilling. And I think that's the way you want to approach work. You want peaks and valleys. When you're engaged, you want full engagement. And then that way, when you drop it, you can fully drop it. Because I think this like not going too hard, but also never really putting it down. And you're always on this like nervous center line, like where you're always a little bit anxious. And I don't think that's the way. I think full engagement, go super fucking hard. And then when you're done, you're all the way done. And that way you have peaks and valleys in your work instead of just this like, instead of sort of always just having work on your mind but you're exhausted by it, so you don't really want anything to do with it.
It doesn't give you any enjoyment, man. So the new thing, like, what are you doing? So it kind of seemed like were you just kind of putting it out there, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm kind of done with the fighting. I'm doing this training thing now. Are you like working on something new? It sounded like you were. Almost like introing something. So So that's, I've been tagging all my stuff with like A.P.E Fitness. So that's the thing that I've been doing online. And like I said, like my whole fighting thing was so that I become a coach on the back end. And that's what I'm doing now. And I was training a bunch of people out in San Diego, and this is actually much better here. But in San Diego, like I had a lot of tech entrepreneurs and people like that were working with me. So they sat all day, every day. None of them ate nutrient dense foods. They were all dehydrated and all sleep deprived. And then they would come work out with me and be like, all right. And then they'd show up and we're supposed to crush a workout, but they're dehydrated, they have malnutrition problems and they're exhausted because they haven't been sleeping. I'm like, all right, if you want to get whatever their goals were, you know, some people wanted like 6-packs, some people, because like, especially in San Diego, there's a lot of vanity stuff, which I don't have a problem with at all. I think it's like, if you want to look good and you want some muscle, like awesome, go for it. But I was always like, dude, like we can't do that if you're not eating food or drinking water or so we'd have to spend so much of the actual session being like, all right, let's track some fruits and vegetables. Cause like, when's the last time you had a fruit? And they're like, oh, I eat fruit when it's around. I don't know. It hasn't been around in a couple weeks. So I guess a couple weeks ago I had some fruit. I'm like, all right, like, let's get your sleep in order. Let's get your food in order. Let's get you hydrated. And then we can have good workouts.
So this thing that I started doing online was to like set people up with their out of gym habits. So that we could like hit it hard when they do come into the gym. Because I think a misunderstanding that most people have is like, you go to the gym to become healthy. Don't. Health and fitness are kind of two different things. Going to the gym is like it is healthy for you, but that's where you become like dense, robust, anti-fragile, sexy, put on muscle, all those things. You don't necessarily become healthy there. You become healthy outside of the gym by focusing on things like good sleep, good nutrition, good hydration. And the most important thing that a lot of people don't talk about, because it's really hard to like have an actual plan for, is human to human connection. Like over and over again, even people that don't have the best access to good food and stuff like that, they see healthy people living the longest, happiest life is because they have deep, meaningful connections to other people around them. So that's kind of tough to tackle as like a fitness guy, but that is the maybe the biggest thing that you can do for yourself. But yeah, so I set this up to like get all their out of gym stuff in order. And then I ended up moving here. So I was like, all right, I'm going to program through this too. And I just ended up setting up this whole thing where now I can do nutrition and habit stuff around sleep, stuff around like circadian rhythm, and making sure like they're eating fruits and vegetables and getting enough protein and all that shit. And then also like making sure that they're getting to the gym. And part of it too is like, I don't know if it was always like this, but especially now with everything being online, is like nutrition especially has gotten so fucking confusing.
Yeah.
Like you can go to one group and they'll be like, don't eat meat. Meat will give you colon cancer. And then you go to another group and they're like, don't eat vegetables. We weren't supposed to eat vegetables.
Yeah.
Fruit's bad for you. It's all sugar and shit. And then, so if you listen to like 2 or 3 people online, you're going to be left with nothing to eat.
Sure.
And you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? So like,
I'll just take breaths of air.
yeah, exactly. And so like I had a bunch of people that were doing that stuff where they're like, they wanted to be keto. So, and do intermittent fasting. So then we'll meet up in the morning and they haven't eaten for 12 hours. And then they had like a coffee with a bunch of butter in it. And then they came to see me and I'm like, all right, we just need to do like shit different if you actually like, if you want to get something out of this.
Sure.
Something that people don't realize is like, especially when you're trying to lose weight is, and I'm kind of picking on keto specifically with this, is like, but if you want to lose weight, you have to be eating not a shit ton of protein, but you have to be eating a good amount of protein, more than keto allows. And you have to be, like lifting weights, doing some tension exercises, because when you're losing weight, your body cannibalizes lean tissue. So, muscle at about a 50-50 percentage with fat. So you're losing weight, but half of what you're losing is muscle. If you aren't lifting a little bit of weights and, having plenty of protein, like 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Yeah. I've definitely heard the 1 gram per pound. Isn't keto though, like a pretty protein based diet or no?
It's a fat-based diet.
Oh, that's right. That's okay. Yeah. Sorry. I had that confused for a second. Okay.
Which there's nothing wrong with it, just depending on what your goals are.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of stuff around it with like brain health and stuff like that. And like, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but like if you are trying to come to the gym and one of your main goals is to like get jacked and have a lot of energy and do explosive sports and all that stuff, then you shouldn't be keto.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yes. Why? So why is that? Because you just don't have enough like fuel. I mean, because you're burning the fat as fuel, right? When you're in ketosis.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's really good for your brain. And so a lot of people get a lot of mental clarity off of this diet. But especially when we go anaerobic and we start going like more intense with our lifts or like start being explosive. So let's say like martial arts or something like that. That energy system takes carbs. So you fuel that explosive energy with carbohydrates. Say you're doing like a long, slow run, then you can work off of the ketogenic diet because you're using more, you're going slow enough where your body can metabolize and work off of its fat storage.
Yeah.
As soon as you pick that up and you go anaerobic, now it switches over to carbs. And if you don't have any carbs in your system, you're going to bonk really hard. And I've heard people say that you can get past that. But I was never able to. And like right now with what you're doing, you don't have a lot of carbs and you seem to be doing fine with your working out.
It depends. I mean, I will say that like on diets, like paleo, right?
Yep.
I think there's carbs in paleo, right? Some carbs.
Yeah, it's limited carbs, but you can have fruit, vegetables, lean meats, potatoes.
Yeah,
that's kind of basic.
I think you can work out longer. Like I think your stamina is a little bit longer.
Yep, longer and slower.
Yeah, longer and slower. But so it's really weird. So like my training right now is all HIIT based, right? So it's all. I mean, even if it's like with weights, it's like fast.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not, if like purposely, if I'm not sweating, if I'm not moving, if my heart rate's not elevated, I'll be doing what I just call like a fast jack. So it's just like not really even a full jumping jack, but it's like closed fist. And it's like up to like even with like, and I'll do those. I mean, it's basically like 2.5 per second, right? And so I'll just rip through like 80 of those to get my heart rate elevated, and then I'm like doing like fast workout, but like it's still like focusing on mobility. Like it sounds ridiculous, but like I've got one that it's a shoulder workout, but it also is for like obliques, and so I'll be in I think it's like a Chinese lunge, like right where you're like kind of lunge down like sideways or something, like a little bit. So it's like. If you were like
an archer lunge, like you step sideways instead of stepping back.
Yes, exactly. So, and then I'll kettlebell like at a full lift vertical.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it works out your back. It also works out your side, and it works out your shoulder. So that one, I'm not ripping through it. It is a 20-pound kettlebell, but like it's designed for me to like slow go.
Yeah.
But I do notice that I don't have as much. You hear like gym rats say this, like, right? And some of them take like pre-workout, so they get the pump or they get the push.
Mm-hmm.
I get the pump. My muscles are all swollen, and it's like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But like previous, like let's say that I'm on the paleo diet before, like I could like really like if that weight is too much, I could push through it, or that activity I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
What I find myself is like I'll be ripping through these, and like, oh, I hit that stopping point, and I stop for 2 seconds, and then bam, 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 I can get through it.
Yeah,
it's a weird. This diet is far different, I think, for certain types of workouts, like you're saying. Like, and I notice it. I try and push through it, or I try and find a way to like, okay, stop for a second, rest, and then go. But yeah, I don't. There's no way I could go like power lift.
Yeah,
like it's just not. Yeah, I don't think my body doesn't have what it needs to burn. You know.
And what you're eating is actually like. Probably better for what we're talking about even than the ketogenic diet, because you do have a very high protein diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if this is still like people aren't sure about this. I think this is now settled, but a lot of protein can be like almost reverse engineered and be used as carbs.
Mm.
So if you have enough protein to where you have enough protein and also your body still needs energy for other shit, it can kind of use that excess protein the way that it would use carbs, where fats aren't. You're not able to do that with fats. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just like if you look at endurance athletes, there's quite a few of them who have something like the ketogenic diet.
Mm.
But if you look at explosive athletes, football players, soccer players, fighters. None of them are on the ketogenic diet.
Sure.
Ketogenic diet. And so, yeah, so part of how you eat should be based on what you're trying to do with yourself.
Yeah. I remember like carb loading, you know, like they would say like 2 days before like a football game or something, like carb load.
Mm-hmm.
And here's this, everybody like that I talked to about either the A, they'd be like, oh, it's a fad diet. It's whatever. But okay. Cool. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
What is
the caveman thing, or just like high protein diet? And I would love if we could do like if people wouldn't call it the caveman diet, because like I wasn't around when the fucking cavemen were here. Like I'm sorry, but if I saw a fucking apple on a tree, there might have been a chance that I would have grabbed it. Right? Like it's one thing to cultivate and grow like something in the ground. Sure, we weren't doing that. Right? We weren't civilized enough. But if something's growing naturally, like a fruit,
you're gonna eat it.
Yeah, they're gonna eat it. Right? They might have been hesitant at first, but once the first guy ate it and he didn't die, I bet the other guys ate it.
Yeah. And we've been eating fruit for so long that's a lot of people think that's partly why we have color vision is to be able to detect ripe fruit.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've definitely been eating fruit ways like from the very beginning. And even you see now a lot of the people that have been doing the caveman for a long time are starting to add in little things like fruit and honey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do actually honey every day. So I religiously do avocado. I for some reason I saw something the other day. It made me laugh. I have to say this. It was like the avocado basically was like, I'm good fat. And then like the bacon was like, nah, lights a cigarette and punches the fucking avocado. I was like, that's awesome. So I for me, it's not even a texture thing because there's no real texture to an avocado. It just breaks up the flavor. So like if I do like, let's say I throw like a half pound of pulled pork and I do 3 eggs and I put a little bit of avocado on the side. Like for me, it's just like it's like that, the feel good, like some people it's Snickers bars, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's like, okay, this is like I'm breaking the rules here just a little bit. I'm going to have some avocado. So I eat a ton of avocado, but I also have honey. But over time, like my plan is obviously to incorporate certain things, but I back into the diet. Like I don't know that true, like if you were to only eat meat and eggs, like the longevity of that, I don't know if there's been enough. I mean, the argument is obviously is like, that's what we used to do as cavemen, where our bodies were designed this, you'll recreate your body and then it'll adapt and be able to eat nothing but protein, like truly red meats.
Sort of. But then you also have a lot of like sailors and pirates back in the day who were getting scurvy because they didn't have access to any fruit.
Sure.
No citrus. And so you can kind of look at that and say the same, well, if we don't have the micronutrient kind of profile, if we're not eating that the way that we're supposed to, then we're going to eventually succumb to lack of nutrient diseases like scurvy.
Sure. Yeah. So I don't, then it's just me personally. I'm no expert on the diet. I think that it's a very short-term thing for me. And I say short-term, like 3 to 6 months, right? I elected to get on it to kind of about face my body. Like I had to, but there are certain things that I will incorporate that I feel like the biggest thing for me is like, if it's in a box or a bag, it's bad.
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty general rule. I know a lot of good foods still come in a box, maybe depending on where you get them.
I have the same rule, but instead of saying it's bad, I always just say it takes more research.
Sure.
Like it's not necessarily bad, but almost 1 for 1 if you get something that was like raised on a farm or raised in a field, grown in a farm or something like that. That's good. You can eat that without doing more research. If it comes in a bag or from a factory, it's probably bad. Maybe not, but like let's do some research.
Yeah, let's definitely read the label.
Yeah.
So I don't know at what point. I think for me it's not necessarily a weight goal that I've got. That is part of it, but for me it's more like I'm trying to kind of like restructure my body makeup, or kind of get back to where I was at like a younger age, and part of that, this diet is absolutely helping that. The alcohol is absolutely helping that. I feel my muscles. I did actually 2 weeks ago started to incorporate creatine back into my diet.
Yeah. Well, if you're eating a shit ton of red meat, then you're getting a lot of creatine as it is.
Yeah. But I just noticed like my muscles weren't dense. They weren't feeling like dense. And
I love creatine. I think it's one of the best supplements that you could have.
Yeah. And then I just started doing, just because I felt a little bit of fatigue, like the thing about so I started calculating, like if you do the 6 grams per body weight, like when you're just eating meat, like that is not enough. Like like it's a lot of protein, but you are constantly feeling like you're starving. You feel weak. Like you just feel like you're depleted. And so like I started like calculating the amount of like protein, like grams of protein that I'm having. And like on a day where I feel comfortable, like I can get through the day, I can get through a workout, I can do whatever. It's like almost twice as much as like the 6 grams per body weight. It's a lot of protein.
So you're talking about, you mean 1 gram per pound of body weight?
Oh yeah. Sorry. What was that? 6 grams? It's
6 grams.
It's like
that'd be
0.6,
a
right?
Shit ton.
It's
so
like
0.6, I think is like, I'm blanking on the name, but the government agency that puts together like general guidelines of how you should eat has protein at quite a bit lower than what most studies are showing now. So most studies showing now, especially when it comes specifically to holding on to muscle mass, is between 0.6 and like 1.5. And there's a big range because it depends on what you want to do. Like, so if you're younger, especially if you're a younger male and you are not trying to lose weight, say you're trying to put on weight and muscle at the same time, then you actually don't need as much protein because your body's not catabolic.
Gotcha.
You have more than enough food, you have more than enough carbs, and the protein will help sustain you. You really want to be at the higher end if you're especially an older female, because they have a hard time hanging on to muscle as it is, or if you're trying to lose weight and hang on to muscle at the same time. Because then your body is catabolic. And like I was saying earlier, your body tends to shed lean tissue as well as fat at about a 50-50 rate, unless you're at that higher end. So that's why there's such a big range, 0.6 to 1.5.
Like, I can feel it. Like that's the thing too. Is like, so maybe that is the case. So like if let's say it's a crazy busy day and like my breakfast is not as good as it is. And like my midday meal plan is whatever. It's like, I feel like physically weak. Like I'm drained, but like I started just calculating it the other day, and it's, if I'm looking at it like that, I'm probably on a regular basis, I'm probably 1.5.
That's perfect.
To body weight. And that's when I feel good. Yep. If I eat less than that, like, like if I didn't have enough like beef jerky or something with me, like just as kind of like, hey, so I got to supplement something. Man, I feel like super, super depleted. But yeah, it seems like a lot when you're thinking about it, but when that's all you're putting in your system, it's not. It's like, I don't know.
Well, that's a big reason why I think, we're made to eat meat, not just meat, but we are definitely made to eat quite a bit of meat. And like to your point earlier, like we weren't farming forever, but we were living in places where we could pick things up off the ground. We could pick things out of trees and have fruit and shit available.
Sure.
But definitely once we went up, like once we kind of migrated higher up into like Europe, where you have winters now that freeze the ground, for sure from the first like freeze to the first thaw, all you're eating is meat.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else around. Maybe some nuts, but like really you're eating a shit ton of meat because there's nothing else around.
Yeah. Man, I mean, it makes sense. Like, I mean, like it's pretty straightforward. Like if you just start to like look at the timeline, like, that's probably more than likely what, if you were to put yourself like out into the wilderness, you'd be like, yep, that's more than likely what I would do.
Yep.
Like
you kind of have to.
Dude, the one thing that's weird though, so we went to, like I don't have any allergies towards like shellfish or anything like that. So we went to a Cajun boil the other night, and I was like in hog heaven. I was like, fuck yes, this is like my diet's planned party. Like I'm so excited. And I went crazy. Like it was like andouille sausage. Like they ended up doing king crab and like shrimp, and dude, I ate it. It fucking wrecked me. Like I was destroyed, like on the toilet.
And you went to a restaurant for this?
No, this was like at a person's house. And I talked to everybody. I was like, hey, did anybody else get sick? They're like, no, it's great. It was just like, I think that's like my gut biomes, Jesus. My gut biome is like different. And like I hadn't like, and that's obviously like seafood naturally is like rich anyways. It's kind of got a lot of like, it's just different than like red meat. And so, man, it wrecked me. And then I was like, all right. So then the other night I ate shrimp again. Just, I did like steak wrapped with bacon, which was fucking amazing. And then a bunch of other sausage, and did like a whole like butter steamed shrimp and ate it. And it was like same thing, dude, just wrecked me.
Oh,
and
weird.
I was like, what is going on? So kind of bugs me because I absolutely enjoy seafood. Like, so tuna hasn't really been, so maybe it's just like a shellfish kind of a thing.
Maybe. I mean, definitely like, I think what you're doing is really smart. There's a lot of people I think that could do really well by going on something like an elimination diet, because what they found over and over again is that like when you remove people from the basic American diet, which is kind of like eating mindlessly, this typical stuff, like it's worst case scenario, but like, McDonald's, chips from the gas station, all that shit, that stuff is fucking you up. And, but it's hard to tell like what is messing with you and what your body can handle. And so a good thing to do is like, all right, we're going to put it all away. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to eat meat. And then slowly I'm going to add things in and see what's fucking with me.
Yeah.
And in general, you can add in things like fruit and some vegetables, honey, a lot more like natural stuff. And that stuff is going to be fine. It's going to keep you very far away from the basic American diet. But like, that's why it's been so easy for so many people to be like, vegetarian is way healthier than not being vegetarian. paleo is way healthier than not being paleo. Like whatever the new diet is, and that's because it's compared to the basic American diet, which is almost the worst fucking way that you could eat.
Didn't they just flip the like? I saw something the other day. It's been a few months back, but like the pyramid scale, like the like the vegetables are here, and it was like there was a huge category of like just shit food that's now enlarged in our government's like pyramid. Like what's like good for you? Like how much of this should you eat? And it was like candies and other shit were like in the larger section. It was like, it was a huge uproar online. I was like, what the fuck is this? It almost seemed like it was a spoof.
Yeah.
But it was like floating around out there. Like this, there's no way that this is healthy for you. Like, what are you talking about? You know, like you remember the pyramid, right?
Yeah.
The food
Yeah.
pyramid?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so,
yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. And I think, like if I could give them like the most fair reading kind of, it's like, their job was to figure out how to sustainably keep the most people alive. Like that's kind of it. Like if we give you this type of food, you guys will be alive for a while. And like, that's good. Here, like have this shit. It's not necessarily to optimize your health.
Yeah.
But like, if you think about like grains and bread and stuff like that, that's stuff that like commoners have been living off of forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's still kind of the case. If you want to keep like poor, lower class people alive, you have to have things like bread and rice because that's what they can afford and that's what they can eat. So then being like, okay, eat this will keep you alive, I think is, if I were to give them like a generous reading of the situation, I would say like, that's what they're doing. And that's fine. But that's not how you optimize your health. That's just how you basically stay alive. Stay there, stay kicking.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, especially when it comes to things like bread, like the bread used to be 3 ingredients, water, yeast, and maybe some salt. And then you can add some nuts and shit like that. But now if you buy a thing of bread and you look at the ingredient list on the back, it's this laundry list of shit that you can't pronounce. It's not really even bread anymore. It looks like bread, but those 3 ingredients have been replaced by 100 weird fucking ingredients.
Yeah.
And not all breads are like that, but like, but enough to where like all of a sudden people are having a really tough time with bread. And that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah.
Like, my mom specifically, she can't do gluten, but she can eat sourdough. Sourdough has gluten in it. The reason is because, like 90% of the bread that we have now are made with fast-acting yeasts. So you put the starter and everything in there, you add fast-acting yeast, and boom, you have bread really quickly, and you can give it to somebody. But the gluten molecule can't break down and become digestible under those circumstances. It takes a long time of soaking in a natural process for that gluten molecule to kind of hatch and open up. And when it does that, now you can digest it. And so when you can't digest it, it just gets deposited into your body and shows up as swelling, especially in the gut. And that's why so many people have gluten intolerances. But like I said, like a large amount of people who have gluten intolerances can still eat sourdough bread. So it's not so much that it's bread. It's the way, like, especially since World War II, how our food production system has changed.
Yeah. I think that goes into the case of the whole, if it's in a box or a bag, right? It's just because like the 1,000 podcasts, 1,000 episodes, people have heard it like over and over and over again. It's like definitely with pastas, with breads, with, like the things that they're spraying over, certain types of vegetables that we're getting like mass production, even if it's organic. It's like, well, how is it organic? Like, is it actually organic or has it been fucking sprayed with, whatever types of chemicals are coming in, and so I think there's a big push, but it's still a minority push towards getting like away from that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like if like we're actually very, very lucky. And I can't say that other cities or places are like this, but like locally, you could literally go to a farmer and be like, I want to buy a cow, and you can invest into that cow with, 6 of your buddies, and like 6 of you take X amount of pounds of meat. Or you can go, I want to go to a farmer's market and this farm is 2 doors down from my house and I want to buy this lettuce and it hasn't been sprayed and it's all organic. That's like real organic. And we're lucky that we get to be able to do that from time to time, or if you take advantage of it. But when people are like at the store and they have all they can go on is basically a rebranding where it's organic and maybe it's USDA organic and that's fine and it's got a green label. you assume that it's supposed to have been safe for you. You assume that it's supposed to be not tainted with different types of chemicals, or this bread, or, was made locally. Okay. Like, what is making it organic? And so now it's like, we've got this like fear factor of like people being like, well, they said it was good for me, but now all these studies are coming out and saying like, it's still the case scenario of like, it's slightly removed from the other stuff that we all know is bad, right? That all the poors have to buy over here. We were buying a little more expensive, but it's still at the grocery store at Walmart. And it's stamped with the approval letter, but it's like, yeah, but it's not actually removed far enough, because it was grown in Vermont and put in a freezer, and they had to ship it across the country in a cooler. Like, that lettuce was picked 3 months ago, and now it's on the store.
Yep.
So it's like, how do you think you really want to, like, do you want to assume that there's not preservatives in that? Do you want to assume that it hasn't been sprayed so that way that when it gets to the store, it doesn't mold immediately? Like, it's kind of that weird thing. Like, I feel like people are pushing away from it, but the reality of it is like, unless you've got the means like we do locally, like with a bunch of rural farms where we could do that, or you have enough money to like go to a store and get like truly organic things, it's expensive to like really like take a push and change your life to get away.
Not just expensive, man, but there's certain places where it's like really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like here, like you said, we're really lucky. We have farmers and ranchers and people that grow their own food all around us. And then even in the stores, we have like local organic and shit like that. Like they make it pretty easy here. But I've gone and I fought places like, because one of the things that you do when you fight is you cut a shit ton of weight, and then you weigh in, and then you have to refuel and be ready for the fight the next day. And because you're fighting on only the shit that you've eaten from weigh in to the next day, it's really important to have those things like fuel you in a way that can like lead you to good performance. You don't want to be eating like fast food and shit like that. But there's definitely places in the country where like I'll weigh in, and then it's hard to find shit that like I'm like, oh, this is gonna fuck me up. Like it's hard to find shit where I'm like, okay, I'll eat this, and this is all healthy. Like, yeah, there's just certain places in the country where it's like legitly hard to find vegetables that are organic, that haven't been sprayed, or eggs.
Yeah.
That where the chickens were allowed to like walk around in the pasture and all that shit. But I think my hope is that we're in a transition point, because the situation that we have now is better than it used to be. What it used to be is like the poorest people would die of starvation. And that sucked. That's kind of the worst case scenario. And now it's like the poorest people can't afford healthy food and they're obese, which sucks. It's still not the best situation, but we figured out a way to not have them not dying of starvation. So that's a good step up. I'd rather have that. We just haven't figured out how to make enough plentiful food so that everybody can have access in a way where everybody can be healthy on that food. It's like, all right, now underprivileged people, food deserts and stuff like that, they get food. It's just Snickers and all the shit in boxes and stuff that you don't want to eat. It's not going to give you healthy, but it's going to keep you alive, which is better than what it used to be. So I don't know. I always have, maybe it's like rose tinted glasses, but I'm still thankful that like, the obesity epidemic and people like becoming more and more unhealthy, it's a thing and it is something that needs to be dealt with. But it's better than that group of people dying off of starvation, which used to be the case.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's the other side of it too. It's like the obesity epidemic is creating more and more problems. It's like fueling like a larger problem, right? So it's like the more we stay obese, the more we stay like with this wheel just spinning. If we don't make a correction as a society, however big that ripple is, like if we don't decide to kind of move, then all it's going to do is just create that perpetual thing that's going to like, you're obese, now you have like health problems, and now we go into a pandemic, and you're not set to fight this off, right? Or you're not
set to fight anything off.
Yeah. So it's like it's creating, it's like, yes, we have resolved something, but like we've created like a bigger thing, and now some people believe that like that's well, it is literally part of our GDP, right? Like this unhealthy overeating epidemic that we have is also like not subconsciously is kind of like a sidebar and is feeding into this other thing that is now part of our economic system. right?
Yeah.
So it's like we can't fully resolve all of these problems because then we live like this huge economic stimulation over here that we kind of need this unhealthy thing, to make sure that we keep this thing over here fed. So it's like this fucking vicious cycle. But I would like to see more and more people like get healthy, I think it's better. I think that if we could see a vast majority of people get healthy, they would be more productive and be able to supplement in different ways back into the society and back into the economy. And then that could be something that could like kind of be another stimulation, right?
Yep.
It's like if you're unhealthy and you die and you have to go to the doctors all the time, cool, then you're feeding into the fucking medical industrial complex. Okay. But if you're healthy and you can produce and be a model citizen and live longer, then you should be able to also feed or stimulate back the economy, right?
Yeah. And it's not in that like dark negative way of like, we got you, like now you're feeding into our system because you're sick and unhealthy and we're going to keep you on all these pills. And like the dark side of it, you're producing and you're being a part of you're adding to your community in like in a productive way of your choosing, not a way of like, fuck, well now I'm sick. And so now I'm gonna have to like be on these pills and pay these doctors and all that shit. Yeah, definitely. No, I would like to see more people be healthy too. There's not an experiment. They were looking at a group of baboons, I think. So like scientists can go into wherever baboons are and they can study them, right? And so they were studying this one troop because they move in different troops. And in general, they're territorial, they're kind of violent, they're hierarchical. But they also have like close bonds. They eat healthy, like all that. They hunt together as troops and stuff like that. Like they're very, the way that they move and kind of self-organize is similar to what humans do. What they were doing is they were looking at all these different baboons, apes, whatever. I forgot exactly what it was, but this troop was close to a village, and what they did was they found that village's trash site, their garbage dump.
Gotcha.
And so they started eating out of that.
The baboons did?
Yep.
Okay.
And all of a sudden they became much more docile, much less violent. But they also started getting sick, weak, fat, unhealthy. And this went on for a couple of generations until another baboon group saw what was going on, came in, killed everybody. Then they started eating that food, and that same cycle kind of started all over again. And I kind of feel like that's like, if you don't want to engage in that cycle, you can't be eating the trash out of like, you got to step away from that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's like I don't know, it's an interesting analogy, and this has nothing really to do with what we're talking about, but it's an interesting analogy, I think, to like how you see civilizations rise and fall, right? Like you start out in a hard place, like Genghis Khan or whatever. Like he had coats made out of mice fur stitched together. Like that's how hardcore those guys were. All the way up until like the crazy opulence of whatever he had when he was when he took everything over. And then so you see nations come into that, they get all the resources that they want, they get fat, sick, tired, and unhealthy, and then they get taken over by a stronger group. I think that's kind of cyclical. And yeah, I think if you don't want to be a part of that, you got to be mindful about exactly like not eating out of the trash and not just succumbing to that kind of like, well, everybody else around me is like sick and docile and sits around, and so that's what I'll do because that's what everybody else is doing and whatever. Yeah,
I think if you take, I agree 100% with that concept. Like civilizations are cyclical. Like history will repeat itself. It always does. However that pans out, we'll see. But break it down into like a microcosm, and I think if you're not healthy and you get like a cough, right? Like that cough can come in and like destroy you for a couple of weeks, and then you finally get through it, right? But it's like if you're healthy, or if you're the strong, like if you're not eating from the trash can, right, and you're a stronger human being, or you're doing certain things to take care of yourself, whether that's through vitamins or eating right or health, whatever the case scenario is, like that other thing that thing that's going to come in and try and take over you, like you have a better chance of either A, completely defeating it or preventing it altogether.
Absolutely. And that was my original point, is like, it doesn't have to be another group of people or another baboon troop. It can be disease. It can be whatever. Something is going to creep into your space and try and take over.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are sick, unhealthy, all those things, it's going to have a much easier time no matter what it is, whether it's a germ, another group of people, anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And you saw that with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the comorbidities were, I mean, it was insane. I don't want to talk too much about COVID because I'm pretty sure this episode would get flagged, but they have a funny way.
I'm not used to that.
They have a funny way of doing that. No, but yeah, I mean, it is real. It's like it really affected the elderly, it affected the obese.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think a bigger thing that came out of that and what I'm afraid of, like, so one thing that did come out of that, and whether that was from Jordan Peterson talking or Rogan talking or, Andrew Huberman talking, whoever it was that was talking about it, but they were like pushing the topic of like, dude, health and wellness, vitamins, whatever. Like you don't even have to be like pro-vaccine or not vaccine, right? That's irrelevant. Like if you take care of yourself first, you have a better chance of fighting anything off.
Yeah.
Like, and that's pretty much commonplace. If you're healthy, like healthier people just don't get sick as much. Now they could, get certain things and that is what it is, but it's like they pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. All of a sudden, like we're like removed from the pandemic and all this stuff. And it's like, it's starting to like get less and less talked about, right? It's like, so damn, It's like, okay, we had this like huge ramp and all of a sudden we're focused on this and now we're going back to the working class, right? It's like we got through a weekend and we're going back to work, right? Are we going to just get quiet about it? Or are we going to keep it going? But it's like the reality of it is like COVID hit, it was horrible, right? Not nearly as horrible as we thought, but we didn't have the data to know how bad it was going to be. But if you look at the data now, healthier people were able to fight it off or not get it at all. And it's like, okay, that was that pandemic. There's been all kinds of pandemics throughout the world. So it's like, what happens when the next thing comes along? That doesn't have to be a pandemic. If you just, again, break it down to you and your world.
Yep.
It's like a little bitty cold, a little bitty hiccup, a little bitty emotional distress at work. Like if you're healthy, both in your mind and your body, like you can beat that thing for that day.
Or it could be a car wreck.
Yeah.
Like if you are fragile, if you have no muscular structure, you're fragile in all your joints, you're all skin and bones, and you get into a car wreck, and that could be whiplash that fucks your neck up forever, or it could be not that big of a deal.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So what is A.P.E? A.P.E.'s the name of the company?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so are you, because years ago, I think you told me, so are you still working on like a digital thing for that? Okay.
Yeah. So that's generally what I do with people is I work with them on all their health habits when it comes to sleep, hydration, and nutrition. And then when it comes to the deep, meaningful connections, they're kind of on their own for that. But I also think that like being healthy helps you with that for a lot of different reasons. One is like it puts you in a clearer mental state. It makes you less self-conscious about yourself, and it makes you more eager to engage with people around you. You have more energy and you have more to offer. And then that way you'll be pulled into a community a little bit easier, and you'll make those connections a little bit more effortlessly. It's something that I think is like a myth that we kind of believe almost unconsciously until somebody tells us, and then we're like, oh, of course that's not true. It's like we have this weird way of separating our mind from our body, where we're like, my body can be sick and I can treat it however I want, because that's not really important. What's really important is mental health. And if I just work on that, that's where the real work is. But those two things are intrinsically tied. Your mind is a consequence of your brain, and your brain is a physical body part. And it can get sick or healthy just like any other body part. And that's tied to the rest of your body. Mm-hmm. And so it's not really this isolated thing. The consequence, like the healthy brain or a healthy mind is a consequence of a healthy brain, which is a consequence of doing healthy things with your body. There's no such thing as that separation. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the biggest ways to work on mental health is to work on your physical health. Make sure you're getting enough sleep, enough nutrients, and like going out and breaking a sweat every once in a while. I think it's funny that like I wish we would treat ourselves a little more like we treat our dogs. Like if you have a dog and he starts acting whatever, he starts acting weird inside the house. you're going to make a bunch of assumptions first. You're going to be like, he needs to go outside and he needs to see sunlight. He needs to go see his other friend dogs and he probably needs some food and some water. Those are going to be the first things that you check.
Mm-hmm.
But we love to think that our problems are higher order than that.
Sure.
Like we don't have a sleep issue. We're not tired. I have real problems.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like you probably do have real problems, but you can't see you can't see those problems clearly if your physiology is all disordered. If you're dehydrated, if you haven't slept in a couple of days, all those, you can't tell if it's a real problem or if you're just fucking super tired.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody kind of understands that. Like,
sure.
And so I think the only way that you can really tell if your problems are real or not is if you have yourself in order first.
Gotcha. Yeah.
If you're healthy, then you can, when you have a problem, you're like, this is a real problem. Because if you're tired and you're hungover and it might not be a real problem. It might just be you're fucking, you're hungover and tired.
You're acting like an idiot. So are you guys going to have an app type thing?
I have an app.
You have an app?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. And so I have a bunch of people already. I have Tommy and Courtney both on there.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I knew, so that's awesome. So yeah, I'd either heard rumor, or we had talked about it, like you were working on like this digital thing and it was, kind of, so I was hoping that like that didn't get left behind in San Diego, but it sounds like that is like part of your coaching package that you're bringing people into, right? That's cool. Right. So does it have like an accountability feature where?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So like a big thing that I'll do with most of my clients is, I'll have them start by eating, like I like to do one habit at a time, because what I've noticed is if I'm like, okay, you're going to get healthy. First, you're going to stop eating out. You're going to stop eating McDonald's. We're going to get you a bunch of lean chicken, a bunch of rice, vegetables, and you're going to learn how to cook. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to work out with me. And don't forget to drink a gallon of water a day and be in bed by, like, people just can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, get rid of your whole old life and here's a new life. Figure it out. What you have to do is people have an existing structure, an existing kind of like the way that they live their life. You can remove one thing and add something else. And then that way, like most of their life stays stable. And you kind of keep doing that over and over again until they have this new life, but you didn't destroy it all at once and build it up from new. You replaced one habit at a time.
Yeah.
So that it's sustainable and they don't feel overwhelmed.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So generally what I have people start with is getting 800 grams of fruits and vegetables.
Sure.
And so anytime they do that, and I teach them how to weigh it and figure it all out. And at the end of the day, when they do that, they can click this button and it fills in a little circle and then I can see that they did it. Same thing with working out, same thing with whatever habit that we're working on. And then that way we can look back throughout the last couple of weeks and be like, all right, you missed a day every once in a while, but everybody does. That's not what matters. The exception isn't what matters. It's what you do on like in a regular pattern. And so if they fill out most of the days, awesome. If they want to engage in a habit, and that's another thing too, is like they have to want to engage in the habit. I'm not going to give them like, you have to eat this much fish. And they're like, fucking, I hate fish.
Yeah.
Like, too bad. Eat it anyway. Like they have to want to engage in it. That's the only way it works. And so if it's something that they want to engage in, but they just can't do it, which that happens quite a bit. You want to do something, but you have these old patterns and old habits. And when you come to do this new habit, you meet a lot of resistance. There's something creeps up inside of you that's like, actually, you don't need to do this. We'll start tomorrow. This thing is more important. Maybe I'll go see my kid. My kid is more important than this thing. And like, that's true that it is. But like, you have this like sneaky little voice that starts creeping up in you whenever you try and start these new habits.
Yeah, that little fucker.
Yeah, he's not your friend. And so like, and Courtney and Tommy are both doing great, but yeah, so we can look at the past couple weeks and see what you did do and didn't do. And then we can kind of troubleshoot that for the next couple weeks and maybe either make some adjustments or maybe it's just a thing of like, bro, like you need to buckle down and do this. Although that's not normally the case because you want to work with people's flow. So it'd be like, okay, you can't hit this workout. What if we take out half the exercises? We'll make it a 20-minute workout. You can do part of it in the morning before you go to work and part of it at lunch. That way you're only spending 20 minutes working out and like, do you have enough time for this? So we figure it out so that they're doing shit that they can do. And we just adjust as we go.
Yeah.
Until they're basically going to bed on time, staying hydrated, eating fruits and vegetables, getting enough protein, and working out every once in a while, a couple days a week.
Yeah.
And that's really all you need to be healthy. And that's what a lot of people that I work with do. And there's another thing that I think people think to themselves where once they think it consciously, they're like, oh, of course that's not true. But they think it anyway, which is like, I can't get to the gym and I can't be perfect on my diet and I can't work out every day. So I can't be healthy. So fuck it. I'll just not do anything.
Yeah. There's so many excuses like in the way.
Yep.
And it's really easy. It's really, so I knew that I was going to run into that, right? So I was going to the rec center at Ignacio. Love the sauna there. I still try and go at least once a week because I like a dry sauna. It's just different. I like to break it up. But so getting into this thing, I was like, okay, here's the deal. Like I don't want to, if I can't work out, the gym closes at 7, closes at 5 on the weekends. Like I don't want that to be a hurdle. I don't want that to be a hiccup. I don't want that little thing on my shoulder to be like, oh man, you'll get it tomorrow, right? Because then, okay, do that one time, then you do it a second time, and all of a sudden you're doing it more and more. So it's like, I bought a sauna. It's like, fuck that. It goes in the house.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I love going to the gym if I can get there, but that is no excuse. Like no matter whatever time frame it is of the day, like my gym's at my house. Like everything I need to work out here. So it's like, it's 15 feet away. So it's like, what I try to do is just put all these like that's not a roadblock. That's not a roadblock.
Yeah.
And so when I met with me physically being like, oh man, it's really late, or it's like, I just don't feel like it today. I'm like not in the mode. I only have one thing that's a roadblock. It's my inner bitch just being that like, okay, you know what it is. Either you're going to be the last straw that says, I don't want to do this. And at least as of like today, I don't let myself be that. Like all these other fucking obstacles can be there, and those are easy to go, oh, I can't drive 20 minutes to Ignacio because, and the gym's already closed at 7. I've eliminated all those obstacles. So it's like, I've only got one roadblock and I'm that roadblock.
Yep.
So it's like, if you can commit to yourself and be like, who are you letting down? Nobody else is here. We're not on fucking Instagram. We're not filming anything. Like this is, you're going to let yourself down while nobody else is watching. So are you going to be that person that lets yourself down, or are you going to get in the gym and do the work that you told yourself you're going to do this morning? And so it's like getting rid of those like things on your shoulders, getting rid of those like as much as you can, eliminating that stuff. Like I found is like just a huge help, because it normally, if you get rid of all the obstacles that you've kind of air quoted in your life, it's one obstacle. It's you.
Yep.
It's you getting up and moving whatever time that has to be for you to do something to kind of get your body in motion. Like you are the only obstacle, but we start to put these little things in place like, I don't have 30 minutes a day. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Let me see your phone. How much have you been on Instagram? Like,
Yeah.
well, I was taking a shit. Okay, cool. Great. Awesome. You're still on Instagram, right? Could you have been doing something like, how much more time, like, could you have like allocated towards like an extra 5 minutes, right? And 30 minutes is not a lot. Like people really try and tell themselves like, oh, like I don't have 30 minutes. Yes, you absolutely have 30 minutes. It might be at 11 o'clock, but you have 30 minutes.
And what starts to happen in people's minds when they don't want to do something, and that's what I was talking about like people really want their shit to be higher order. They really want to be too busy and have so much more important shit to do and because they don't want it to just be like, well, I'm too lazy and I don't actually want to do it. But like what starts to happen is like when you already have a habit and it comes to you kind of easily, you look at it like, well, all I have to do is go to the gym and work out for half an hour. But if you don't want to do it and it's a habit that you're having a hard time building, you're going to look at it like, well, it's not just going to the gym for half an hour. I have to put both my shoes on. I have to walk to the car. I have to get in the car. I have to drive to the gym. I have to check in. And I don't really like the check-in lady play. Like I don't like the lady at the front desk. Then I do my workout and then I have to change back out. I'm going to be all sweaty. And you add all these extra like little steps, and they are real steps, but it's like, if you want to do it, you would just look at it like going to the gym and doing it. Like that's how you look at most things that you have to do, right? If you have to go to the store and grab a couple groceries, you're not like, fuck, I have to put both shoes on. You don't add on all these like other little things. Yeah. But yeah, that's a big part of what I do with people is figuring out ways to make the healthy choice the easy choice.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of things, like a big one is just like getting people a fruit bowl and having them fill it with fruit so that they see it and then they eat it. Or like if they have a job where they have to go into town and they're at their job all day, is like, all right, let's get you a lunchbox and then teach you how to like make some shit the night before and then fill your lunchbox with the food and then take the food to work. Like really like breaking it down into little steps like that, because people know what to do in general and how to eat, but they don't know how to go about putting those habits in place in their life in a way that's actionable and repeatable every day.
Yep. Yeah, I mean the lunch thing is weird for me. It's always honestly been a struggle, which is crazy because I worked oil and gas forever, and it's like you're out in the boondocks. If you don't have any food, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Right. But one thing I kind of found, and this is just me shifting, and I've just recently gone back to eating breakfast because I have to. I'll be so depleted, like if I don't, like with this diet. But historically, like I would be like what most people would think like is intermittent fasting, just because like I would like eat like a light snack at lunch because I don't like to be heavy. I don't like to feel like I'm just bogged down with like the food, like my body processing food. So then I would eat like a heavy, like not an over the top dinner, but I would eat a dinner and then like carry that through. And so like, I sort of like built my like, I think my like the way that my body would process its food and like break out energy with like my work schedule. Like, so if I forgot my lunch, I didn't feel depleted. I didn't feel like this stuff. But like now that I think about it, like that was like horrible for years.
Yeah.
Like it's like I could have resolved all of that by just like, don't be a retard and just make your lunch the night before and just go, but my whole thing was like, never wanted Simone to make a lunch and she wouldn't make a lunch. So it was like, I had to be responsible, but I'd be like, and then like I'm running out the door in the morning. So it's like now,
you're like, I'll figure it out when the time comes. And then you're like, fuck, I'm all the way out here. I don't have anything to eat.
What is going on? So yeah, those like tiny little habits, they seem irrelevant. Yeah, they really do. And it's because like I think that you just overlook them.
And it's like, it's, you don't know to what degree you're going to have to break things down. Like I was working with one client who was a female and she's very skinny and she wanted to put on weight. And like, I was having a really hard time getting her to eat. Like we were having her track what she was eating for a little while. And it's just like very low calories over and over again. And it took me a long time where I was like, okay, what are you doing with your day? And she's like, well, I work from home, so I don't really leave the house. And I was like, okay, what food do you have in the house? And she's like, well, I don't have food in the house. Like, all right, let's get you out of the house and get you grocery shopping. Me and you could put a grocery list together. And then we'll bring food into your house and stock your cabinets in your fridge. And then that way food will be around. And then that way you have food to eat.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes it's like very basic, very simple shit like that. It's almost so simple that like neither party thinks of it.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be kind of crazy. So, man, that's really cool. I'm happy to hear that I was hoping that was something. I know you worked on it for like ever, that app side of your program. And I was hoping that like it didn't just get like sort of lost in the wind in San Diego when you move back. So I'm glad to see that because like it's a functionality. I feel like that we're so ingrained on our phones that it kind of like gives people the ease of use, right? You're getting rid of obstacles. Like a little bit of accountability doesn't quite feel like it's an accountability program, but it is there. But it's kind of so we're both on this even playing field. I'm not going to like chew your ass. And I think that that's a huge part for a lot of people to like, just like, okay, I've got to input this data or just as a reminder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people they get caught up with like daily life and they sort of just forget. And it's like, I think it's a great feature. So I'm super happy to hear that you're rocking and rolling with that side of it too.
What I've been doing is like, I think this kind of comes back to what I was saying is like, there's so many health practices to take part of where people get overwhelmed and they're like, well, I can't cook for myself 3 times a day, plus eat all the fruits and vegetables, plus do 10 minutes of breath work, plus stretch and roll out, plus be in the gym, plus spend time with my family, And so then they just kind of get lost in the weeds and they don't do anything. And that's really how easy, or it's much simpler, I think, for a lot of people to have an app or something that's like, all right, it's not that overwhelming. You're going to have some fruits and vegetables. You're going to have some protein. And you're going to do this workout that's going to take 10 minutes in the morning and this workout that's going to do 10 minutes in the night. And you're only going to do that 3 times a week. And that's all you need.
Yeah.
It's like it breaks it down into small, actionable, bite-sized things that you can accomplish, check off, and be like, okay, I actually did that. Now I feel a little healthier. Yeah, exactly. And then like it's that misconception of like, I can't be in the gym. I can't be lifting heavy weights. So I can't be healthy, I guess. So I just won't do much. But like what I really like, especially with working with people around here as opposed to in California. There, most people had aesthetic goals where
Sure.
they're like, I want bigger shoulders and bigger lats, which is fine, but it's not health oriented. It's just like, it's not as engaging for me. It's not as fun. I'm not a physique coach.
Sure.
Where here, almost everybody, almost person for person is like, I'm getting a little bit older and I love like skiing, rock climbing, and mountain biking. And I want to be able to do those things. And that's so much more fun for me to program. And especially when people have like, you know, not the best habits surrounding maybe alcohol and then food. Like they're eating like a lot of pizza, they're drinking a little bit every day, and then they're not working out, doing any stretching, foam rolling, or anything. And then winter rolls around and they try and have like a kick-ass ski season.
Yeah.
It's really tough. But if you just like take care of yourself a little bit, do a little bit of that strength stuff, do a little bit of balance work, eat some fruits and veggies and have plenty of protein. Then when the ski season swings by, like you'll be ready for it and you can have a much better season. That's like kind of what I've been working with people right now is like not specifically skiing, but just like keeping people healthy enough to where they can engage in the sports that they've been engaging in since they were, 15 or 16. And now they're getting a little stiff and a little old for it. And it doesn't take much to put you back in that kind of ready state where you can go out and play again.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I've kind of been thinking about as we're talking is, you see a ton of influencers like online, right? And I think that there's some people that see the influencers and they kind of gain from it, right? They're like, okay, this is awesome. Like I'm going to maybe do what this guy's doing or whatever. And it is beneficial. And then there's other people that see it and they digest what some of the influencers are doing. And they're like, oh, that'll never be me. And it's kind of like they go into this like negative aspect of like what the influencer's actually trying to do.
It sets the bar so high that you're like, well, I'm never going to meet that. So fuck it.
Yeah. But I wish there was a way like truly to like visualize or to make a visual product to like just show people or explain, like if you could bottle it up, like I promise you, like if we could make this statement, like I promise you if you do this for 1 month, like this will make you light years happier, like physically, mentally, and just like give that to them in a bottle. Like just take a sniff of that and that's what it's going to be like in a month or 2 months or 3 months.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Instead of like, cause I do feel like a lot of people, they, whatever, for whatever reason, they go into, almost like, it's not a FOMO. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss of words, but it's like like imposter syndrome a little bit, right? They kind of like go into this negative space of their own being, and they like see these people like like you said, they're setting the bar so high. They don't think, but the reality of it is like that may not be your bar. Your bar should be like, I'm going to better myself just slightly and get to here, and like incremental, tiny baby steps, because it could take years to get to where you want to be, but it's like there's a promise at every little step that you're going to feel better. Like whether that's because like, oh my God, like my rotator cuff on my shoulder is no longer sore because I started doing X, Y. It's like little stuff that like, I didn't realize I could do this, or like, I'm genuinely like happy again. Like, holy shit, it's been years. I wish you could just have a way to like illustrate that and just show somebody and be like, regardless of what that person looks like or how you feel when you see somebody else that's like in great health or medium health, and you look at yourself in the mirror that night and you just don't feel good about you. It's like, if you could just like put blinders onto that for a second and follow like a program, or just know that it's like, I promise you, you're going to be better in like 2 months. Like if you just stick with it for a second, like, and like, just because when you get there, like I'm not where I want to be, but like, I feel fucking great, Kevin. Like I feel better than I felt. Like I'm like not quite where I was like in high school, like nowhere, like my physique's not that. I'm walking around at like 204 pounds. Like I would like to be like around 185, 190. And I think personally I would feel better, but my mental clarity is great. And like, it sucked for a month and a half, and then like you get into like 2.5 months and you're like, okay, like I feel fucking good. And I wish that people, like I wish there was a way, because I'm not blaming influencers. I think that they're doing what they're doing. And a lot of people like jump on board with that. They're like, fuck yeah, I can do this. But not everybody. And it's like, I wish that everybody had the opportunity to experience like, just making themselves feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
And that's being able to go like play like soccer with your kid in the field. Like, yeah, you might be like 40 and overweight, like, can you go run around with your 6-year-old for an hour? Probably not. But like, I mean, it's like,
but you will in 3 months if you start this journey.
It's like, yeah, then you feel fucking great.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just wish you could just showcase that to somebody and be like, I promise you, take a little sniff,
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things, man. Like one is like, and I wish people could understand that and make some peace with it. And that is, nobody is exactly where they want to be. Nobody has the perfect body that they want to have or the perfect life that they want to have, because whatever you set up as an ideal, what you're striving towards, you're never going to meet that perfectly. You're always going to have an ideal in front of you that's just a little bit better than you are, that you're striving towards. And you should have that, because that's what keeps you striving and moving forward. If it's a sign of a douchebag to be like, nah, I'm already here. I got everything that I want. I'm fucking awesome. I don't need to work on myself.
Yeah.
Like you need that ideal that's a little bit better than you for you to strive towards. So the fact that you're not exactly where you are is just a sign that you're human and you're striving towards an ideal. And that's a good thing. You should have that. But then the other thing is too is, oh fuck, now I'm blanking. Fuck, what were we just talking about?
Yeah, like people just, basically having like imposter syndrome towards.
Oh, right. Okay. So another thing is like, so say you start a health journey and you eat right and you work out for a week and then you stand in front of the mirror, you're not going to see any change.
Sure.
And then you do that for another week and you stand in front of the mirror and you're not going to see any change. And that's really disheartening to people. But it's like, I wish you could get a feeling a little bit sooner of like, okay, you are on the right path. It's just that path takes a little while. It takes a few months before you start to notice things. And that's, people have this thing with like before and after pictures. And I think they're a little gross when like, depending on how they're used, right? Like coaches will take them and put them up on the internet. And that's like, that's fine. That's one way of getting clients and all that stuff. And as long as the person getting the picture taken is fine with it and whatever, that's okay. But a lot of times I recommend like taking a picture of yourself. If you're serious about this, take a picture of yourself standing in front of the mirror. And that picture is just for you. You don't need to show it to anybody, because you live with yourself every day. And so these little changes happen every day. Like, and if you don't have a before picture or something to compare it to, you don't notice these changes. They happen so slowly. And so you can go months and be like, man, is this really even working? And then you look back and you have that picture and you're like, oh shit, yeah, this is working.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that thing to compare it to, a lot of times it's easy to get lost in the weeds and be like stop being able to tell if this thing is actually working. So using a before and after picture for your own private, for you to look at, I definitely recommend that for certain people, depending on what their goals are and kind of like what their attitude is towards what they're about to do, their health and fitness journey. Yeah. Right. Because a lot of people are very externally motivated. They want to see these results in their body. Sure. It's much less about like feeling and being healthy and more about like, no, I feel fat. I want to look good. Yeah. Which is fine. Like wherever you start, but like, then that's when you need those visual cues, some pictures or whatever.
Yeah. This kind of go around, and I said it the other day, but it's really not about weight. I have a much larger goal than like a specific weight. I think that the weight, it's easy to get to a weight. I mean, I've done it multiple times in my adult life, right? Where it's like you get to a weight and boom, and all of a sudden you can like kind of let off the gas a little bit. And then you've let off the gas for fucking 6 months and you put back on 15 pounds. You're like, damn, what? Now I got to work like twice as hard to get back to that weight, right? So like the goal is not a weight. I maybe people can do the same thing, but like if the goal is a weight, I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad goal, but like I think that the goal should be bigger. It should be like a constant way of living, right? It should be a constant healthy lifestyle. Because if you have a healthy lifestyle, the weight is going to be there. The weight is a byproduct of the healthy lifestyle. So it's like shifting your mindset instead of like, we like constantly in society, like whatever kind of desk job you have or whatever, we have goals or we have deadlines, right? We always try and hold ourselves to the like standards. If you get to that weight, it's super easy. And I just knew that I had to kind of shift gears this time because I've done that. I've lost like 20 pounds and like, boom, I'm looking awesome. And then it's like 2 years later, you're like, God, what just happened? Oh, I started focusing on my job. So it's like, fuck all that weight stuff this time around. It's like, I've got to you have to, if you want to be here for a longer time with your friends and family, you got to be healthier. And that's the end game. That's the goal. And the great thing about that goal to me is it doesn't stop.
Yeah. Well, and that's the difference between being performance oriented and outcome oriented.
Mhm.
Being outcome oriented in general will fuck up your performance. So you can take it to fighting or making money or anything else, but you can say like, let's just take fighting, 'cause that's something that I'm comfortable with. I make everything about fighting. But you go into a fight and you're like, okay, what's my goal? I want to win. That's the outcome that I want. So everything that I'm doing is focused on winning. But you haven't won yet, and that's an outcome out here in the future. And you have no control over whether or not you win. You have control over your performance. Your performance will get you to that win. But if you're focused if you're only focused on winning and you're forgetting about your performance, you probably won't win, because it's the performance that's going to get you to the win. So you have to be focused on your performance, not the outcome. And like you said, that's the difference between being focused on living a healthy lifestyle and then having the weight just be a byproduct of that, or being focused on the weight. And then every time you step on the scale, getting frustrated that you're not there yet, and then you lose sight of the performance, and your performance starts to suffer, and then you don't get the weight anyway.
Yep. That was where it was for me, man. Too many times before, it's like I didn't step on the scale for a long time, and I was curious the other day, and I stepped on the scale, and it was like, oh, awesome. Okay, shit. I made a video, like I felt like a total schmuck as soon as I posted it, but I was like, all right, I don't know. This is like, I'm not a big like health and fitness guru. That's like, I don't think that I have enough knowledge about it to like, but it felt good to see that like in 60 days I had lost 26 pounds. I was like, fuck yeah, that is a huge win. It's like a micro win for me today. But as soon as I hit like share, I was like, oh, that was
dude, you shouldn't be
so cringe.
Nah, man, because like I get the same way, man. I did something in when I was posting where I was talking into the camera for the first time. I've never done that before, and same thing. I felt super fucking cringy about it. But people are better off when there's a lot of people around them doing the thing, becoming healthy and stuff like that. It's like, remember back in the day, I think it was a 5-minute mile, or maybe it was a 3-minute mile. I can't remember. They used to think that like running a mile in a certain time was humanly impossible, and nobody had ever done it. And then one year at one Olympics, one guy beat that time.
Yep.
And then the next Olympics, everybody beat that time because they were like, oh, this can be done. And so the more people around you, like, because some people are like, I can't lose this weight. I can't do this. Whatever. But then your buddy Kyle did it, and he's like, oh, here's how I did it. And then this guy did it, and this guy did it. And when you open up your phone, there's another guy that did it, and you're like, fuck, all right, fine, maybe I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was like the motive of the post, but it still felt a little bit fucking cringe city. So I was like, oh.
Dude, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell when you're like knowledge sharing, and when you're being like trying to like uplift like a community or say something positive, and when you're bragging about yourself. It's very hard to tell. I was doing a little bit of bragging. I was like, man, I feel good about this. Like, this is a win, but like, I really meant like, I do like, I'm genuine in the fact that like, I hope that people can kind of like take a little bit from that and be like, and I ended it with like, yeah, you can. Like, if you're fighting a demon that you can't seem to kick, like talk to somebody, like get over it. Like, you have to move past. You got to be the first one to take that step. Like, you've got to be able to like break a hold of whatever that is that for me, I didn't realize that it was, but I hate to go back to it again, but like that grip that alcohol subconsciously had on me, it was like, once I was able to release that, the rest of the shit is awesome. And then now I find myself like, the reason I love the cold plunge so much, and like mine is not a like a true plunge, but I have a trough.
Yeah. So it's like, it's still cold, but like, so for me, it's you start out doing that, right? Let's say that you get 2 minutes into it and you didn't think you could get there. And 2 months later, you've pushed your mind enough and you've found a way to get in there and say a mantra and all of a sudden, and you're going for 6 minutes. And like today, before this thing, I'm like focusing on a conversation in my head that I'm having with myself, right? And I all of a sudden come to, and my alarm's been going off for a minute on the picnic table.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, I went 7 minutes. And so it's like, you like slowly, like if anybody can take anything away from like that shitty ass post that I put up, it's like, I want them to know that like if they have something that has them by the balls and they can't get away, if they can find somehow to latch onto something else, like you say, like eliminate this one thing and replace it with something else. Like you will be surprised like what your brain is capable of telling the rest of your body.
Yeah.
Like if you can get away from that thing that has you attached that you never thought you could kick, or that you're not even aware that it's got a grip on you, if you can figure out some way to just get away from it, you will be blown away at how powerful your mind is at driving the rest of the limbs. Like it's you know what I mean? And that's what I found out. And so like that video was way cringy, but I was celebrating for myself, but I was trying to like show people like it's fucking possible. You know, I didn't purposely post a picture of what I looked like. I'm not there. I'm never, even when I had a 6-pack in high school, like I was never comfortable with my shirt off. I was like, no, not me. I'm not that fucking guy. But, you know, I was like, it is possible. Like 26 pounds in 60 days is huge. And I've got a long way to go, but it's like, I think that if you're struggling with something too, you can do this. Like literally you can do it. And I'm kind of proof in it. Right. So, and hopefully people took that from it. Maybe they didn't. I don't know, but it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. And everybody's struggling with something. It might not even be like a health and fitness thing, but yeah, everybody has those little things that they struggle with and want to change about themselves.
Yeah.
Everybody does. But yeah, and that's like that takes us back to like what we were talking about comfort zones. Like if you have anything that you want to change about yourself, it's necessary to leave your comfort zone in order to change that thing. Because like you're not going to be able, like you just won't be able to like your comfort zone, because it's already comfortable, is already who you are and what you are. They're your habits. They're like what's known to you, all that shit. The stuff that you need in order to change yourself is outside of that comfort zone. So no matter what it is, whether it's health and fitness, and you're nervous to go into the gym, and I've seen that a lot. It's like people want to get healthy, but they're super intimidated about going into a gym, especially a martial arts gym, but really any gym. And that's because that's outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
So no matter what you're looking at to change, I think like that's something to have in mind is like, all right, step number 1, this is going to force me to leave my comfort zone, and just know that that's a part of it, and that's not something to back down from or be like, maybe this isn't for me because now I'm not comfortable. Just knowing that that's a necessary part of this journey to change yourself, no matter what aspect you're trying to change.
Yeah. Man, leaving that comfort zone, I don't know if we want to end it on this, but, I have a huge, like, I have an imposter syndrome when it comes to this podcast. Asking guests is like one of my biggest fears. Like, it doesn't matter whether I've known people for years, like since day one of starting this thing, like asking people to be on this show is like, God, it is so unnerving for me. And it's not because I'm afraid of the answer. It's because I feel like, what does my show have to offer a person to where they would give me their time to come on here? And whether it's having a bullshit conversation, drinking whiskey, it doesn't matter. I've always, but a few days ago, like I had a conversation with a guy and it kind of lit a fire under my ass. And I was like, it was about something completely off topic from this, like completely. And like 2 days ago, I was up really late and I shouldn't have been because I needed to get to fucking bed. But I was like thinking about something. I had just come out of the cold plunge and my mind's like, let's go. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like if you don't ever ask a guest to be on the show, then they're never going to give you an answer to say no, or they're never going to just ignore you. But like, you're never going to know what the outcome could be if you don't ask that person to be on the show.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you're never going to like stop with the fear. Like that's not going to gain you anything. That's not going to get you any traction. That's not going to be a forward progress. And so, I took a huge leap and I was just like, you know what? I reached out to a guy that's got a great following. He is an influencer. And I was like, you know what? This is probably never even going to hit your inbox. Spiel. Woke up the next morning and he was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And so in that same like mind, that like same hour, I hit up another guy, and it was like both of these guys, huge following. They happen to both be up in the Denver kind of area. they're going to come on as guests. And they both responded immediately, almost saying, "Yep, absolutely. Let's do it, man. Sounds like a fun time." So I'm going up to Denver next week to do these shows. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I had this like click. It was like 2 days ago to where I was like, you know what? Fuck it, man. Like if you don't ask the questions, if you don't ask these guests, regardless of who they are, you're never going to know the answer. Like get out of your comfort zone, like press that fucking edge. And I'm so glad like the analogy that you had tonight. It's like, you have to push that out. And sometimes you got to jump in that uncomfort, like both fucking feet. You know what the comfort zone is.
Yeah.
You could go back to being afraid. You could go back to never shoot an email to a guest that you never thought you're going to have on the show.
That comfort zone is always calling to you.
Yeah. But it's like, I had to push myself and I did. And it was like, you know, it was like after the sauna, after the cold plunge, and my mind was right. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck it, man. Like all you're going to get is either no response or a no. Yeah. That's not going to kill you. That's not going to destroy your world.
And most people who are where you want to be are not going to like begrudge you trying to get to where they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the people who talk a lot of shit are the people, like you can't offer anything that you don't have inside yourself. So only the people who are talking a lot of shit being like, you're doing a podcast. That's fucking dumb. Da, 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 da. You shouldn't be trying new shit. That's because that's how they talk to themselves. Mm-hmm. If you are around interesting people, they're never going to tell you not to do a podcast because they're always trying different shit. Some stuff is stupid. Some stuff works. This didn't click. This definitely clicked. Like it's only the people that are filled with fear and have a lot of that negative self-talk that are so quick to be like, this is dumb. You think you know what you're doing. You don't know, this isn't going to grow. You think you can do a podcast, like, you know, because that's how they talk to themselves. But the people who are where you want to be, they don't have that self-talk. Otherwise, they wouldn't be where you want to be.
Sure. Yeah. And I truly believe in that. I did not expect either of those gentlemen to respond. And the way that they responded was amazing. And it was like highly invitive. Like, you know, I even was like, you know, hey, I'm going to book a podcast studio. So that way that, you know, like I know you do a lot of work out of your house, but I don't want to be invasive. I'm also a stranger until we get to know each other. So, and it was like 2 or 3 messages later, I think it was kind of missed in communication, but he was like, what do you mean? Like you're renting a studio? No. And he like sent me a video. He's like, no, you just come to my house and we'll just do it here. Like this is like my comfort space. Like you're more than welcome. Let's go. And it was strange. Like, just like you say, like those people that are there where you want to be, or that you think are interesting and you kind of like admire in a sense. They're not consumed with the negative talk, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like apparent, like immediately, like, but you hold people in such regard sometimes that you think that you can't even have a straight line communication with them. And it's like,
totally.
I like out of that moment of like me jumping out of that comfort zone, it was like, I realized that really quickly. It's like exactly like you said is, you know, these people they're there where you want to be. They're there because they didn't have the negative mindset.
Yep.
You know,
or so they did, like, and they got over it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like when people are in that position, they're like, oh, this place is pretty cool. I'm in this good position. You guys should try and do this.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like propping each other up. That's always a fucking great deal, man. But, well, shit, Kevin, if people want to reach out to you, you're coaching in Durango?
Yep. So I coach at Summit Fitness.
Okay.
I coach at Durango Martial Arts, and then I work with a few of the boxers at the Good Fight gym.
Okay, in the mall?
In the mall.
Oh, cool.
Yep, exactly. And then I also have A.P.E, which is online. If anybody wants to train with me there, that's my online business.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes, but what is it so they can hear about it?
So you can just find me at I just changed it. Coach Kevin Wirth on Instagram.
Okay.
And then if you want to work with me online, there's a link at the top of the page and all that stuff. So that's all it is right now. And that'll take you to like where I can get in contact with you, and then I can move you over to my online platform.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's not like a public platform at this point. Like they couldn't go find your app or.
Nope. It's something that they have to be invited onto.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So all you do is shoot me your name and number, and then I send you the link, and you can upload yourself from there.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome, man. I think it's a really good approach. I mean, I'm kind of intrigued. I haven't seen it because I'm not a part of it, but I think we're hanging out with Courtney and Tommy here in a couple of days. I'm gonna give me your phone. Let me see this shit.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on, dude. It's been a really good conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I babbled too much about my journey, but I'm just really again, like, get rid of something, replace it with something. This is like so topical with me right now. It's like just getting my mind, my body, and my life together, So it's like really awesome to just be able to talk to you about that. So I appreciate it.
Dude, if you have any questions about specifics, always hit me up.
Yeah, no, I will, because I don't know shit. I'm just
Okay, cool.
I'm just in there winging it, having some results, but like, I'm sure that will hit its head wall here shortly. And I'm like, what is happening? It's not fucking working. It's like, so I'll be reaching out for sure. So
sweet.
Oh yeah, brother. Thank you.
Anytime.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.